Luo Ning suddenly shushed Long Qin, glaring at him. She whispered, "There are so many disciples of the Luo family here. If they hear you say this, they'll instantly turn hostile." "It's fine, I'm just talking to you. It's just the two of us and we're not outsiders. I'm curious why your Luo family would suddenly make such a rule. Did something provoke your family head?" asked Long Qin. Luo Ning hesitated. Looking around, she finally whispered, "I can tell you, but you can't tell anyone, especially not my big sister." Long Qin's eyes brightened. His heart began to beat faster, and he nodded. "I swear on the heavens to keep this secret. If I betray this oath, let me be struck by 5-colored lightning." This oath was meaningless to Long Qin. The heavens often struck him with the 5-colored lightning anyway. "Fine. Our family head is the most outstanding expert to appear in the past tens of thousands of years in our Luo family." As Long Qin expected, Luo Ning's heart was pure. She had no schemes and couldn't keep secrets. As soon as he asked, she was like a sieve leaking everything. The current head of the Luo family was Luo Zichuan, and he became an immortal king at the age of 40. He had spent his life fighting, wiping away any threats to the Luo family. It could be said that other than the first-generation family head, he had contributed the most to the Luo family in all the family's history. Although the Luo family's history was long, by the time it reached Luo Zichuan's era, they had started to shake. They were surrounded by enemies and crises. The Luo family had been made the target by many enemies. What they revealed on the outside was just to scare others, but in truth, one big battle and they would have been seen through and would have collapsed. The various large powers around them had been intimidated by them. They eyed them like tigers watching their prey, but they also didn't dare to make any rash moves. They just quietly suppressed the Luo family. When Luo Zichuan was a youth, the Luo family fell into crisis. The various large powers around them seemed to have seen through their weakness and began to devour the Luo family's territory and business. The Luo family could not resist them all. They began retreating while going around asking for aid. However, when a nation was weak, its allies fled. The Luo family's old allies and supporters didn't help. Instead, they joined with their enemies. Doing their best to fight back, the Luo family was losing countless disciples every year. It was in this kind of environment that Luo Zichuan grew up. At 10 years old, he already stepped on the battlefield. After narrowly escaping death countless times, he activated his ancestral bloodline, and it was said that his bloodline underwent a change due to some opportunity. He then spent 30 years fighting all sides, ripping out those forces that dared to invade the Luo family's territory and wiping them out. During these 30 years, rivers of blood flowed. Countless powers asked for peace, but Luo Zichuan ignored them, instead removing them by their roots. Some powerful forces also threatened them for this, but Luo Zichuan refused to submit. He directly said that starting in his generation, the Luo family would die standing. They would not live kneeling. Anyone who interfered was viewed as the Luo family's mortal enemy. Unless they could wipe out the entire Luo family, then as long as there was a single living member of the Luo family, they would fight back generation after generation. This kind of toughness offended many powers, but in the end, those powers were unable to stop the Luo family's vengeance. The Luo family experts wreaked havoc on those that had devoured their territory and businesses. After reclaiming all they had lost, the Luo family reached an unprecedented level of power. Luo Zichuan's life of battle had raised his extremely stubborn character. Hence, the rules that he set down were viewed solemnly by the entire Luo family, with no one daring to resist. The teachings in the Luo family were extremely strict. Luo Zichuan had 3 wives but only had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Furthermore, they were all from one mother. Luo Zichuan raised his children even more strictly, with high standards for them. It had to be known that Luo Zichuan only married and had children after reaching the Immortal King realm. Thus, his children were shockingly talented, especially his daughter Luo Ningxuang. Her talent was even greater than her 2 older brothers, and she was definitely qualified to reach the Immortal King realm as well. This daughter of his was particularly cherished and loved, but he was also particularly strict with her. Furthermore, this daughter of his had not just inherited her father's strong points. She had also inherited his stubbornness. In the face of her strict father, she often contradicted him and didn't submit despite many punishments. There were many times when immortal King Zichuan shook from rage because of her. At some point, it was said that father and daughter fought, and then Luo Ningxuang suddenly vanished. Apparently, she had stolen one of immortal King Zichuan's lower world talismans, going down to the lower plane for adventures with another group of disciples from the immortal world. Immortal King Zichuan's anger was thunderous. He directly gave the order to pursue her, but once in the lower plane, that group split up, every person going in their own direction, so no one knew where she went. Just like that, over 20 years passed. One day, Luo Ningxuang suddenly returned. Even after all these years apart, when father and daughter met once more, an even worse fight erupted. When he learned that Luo Ningxuang had married and had a child in the lower world, immortal King Zichuan was enraged. By having a child so early, Luo Ningxuang had wasted her immense talent. It had to be known that people would only start having children when their cultivation bases had reached the limit. The greater the cultivation bases of the parents, the greater the talent of their children. However, the higher their cultivation bases, the more the heavenly Daos would restrict them, making it more difficult for them to have children. Thus, some experts could be married for thousands of years without having a child. When he learned that she had had children so easily, immortal King Zichuan was so enraged that he directly ordered for her to be tossed into the land of bitter cold, saying that she could crawl out alive from there or simply die. That bastard! Long Chen clenched his fists when he heard this. His mother was actually treated like a criminal. He listened as Luo Ning continued her story. Luo Ningxuang was tossed into the land of bitter cold, but unexpectedly, she came out on her own. Not only that, but she also cultivated a body of ice energy and even subdued the overlord of that land, the Ice Frost Spirit Dragon, turning it into her steed. After coming out, the first thing she did was go to the Chu family. A torrent of blood then baptized 3 of the strongholds of the Chu family. Millions of their disciples were killed. However, she also ended up disturbing the Chu family's experts. Ultimately, 1 dragon and 1 person slaughtered their way out of the Chu family's encirclement, leaving a bloody path behind them. It was said that she was seriously injured after that battle and was hunted down by the Chu family. However, her spirit dragon was too fast, and her pursuers couldn't catch up to her. She then vanished, and no word had emerged about her in over 20 years. Some people said that they had seen her in other domains or that she had created her own power, but Luo Ning was unaware of those details. Ever since the matter of Luo Ningxuang, immortal King Zichuan gave the order that all the women of the Luo family had to stay within the family and were not permitted to marry outside. No one knew what he was thinking. "Do you know what domain she's in now?" asked Long Chen, doing his best to remain calm, but failing to keep his voice from quivering slightly. "I don't know, but the elders in the family should be aware of it," said Luo Ning. Long Chen clenched his fists. His mother didn't know if he was even alive. She was definitely tormented every day. He had to grow up quickly. Just at this moment, a knocking came from the door, and Luo Bing walked back in. Seeing that Luo Ning seemed lively, she sighed with relief. The Inner Academy's disciples are starting to gather. It seems that they have something important to announce. We should hurry over. The Inner Academy's plaza was filled with a sea of people. Almost all the Inner Academy's disciples had arrived, and the locations that they were standing at were carefully chosen based on their guild rankings. The Luo Gate hadn't gone to the Devil Battlefield in a few days, so they had fallen to rank 39. As for the Unfettered Alliance, they were rank 97 and were also in a spot at the front. However, Long Chen wasn't with them. He was with the instructors. The shocking thing was that Long Chen was standing amongst the Heaven Masters. It had to be known that the God Institute only had 4 Heaven Masters. The Immortal Institute only had 6, and that was the most of any institute in the Academy. The Academy had over 30 institutes but fewer than 100 Heaven Masters. Some institutes only had a single Heaven Master, as the exam could truly be called difficult. In fact, it was rumored that the exam had to be personally overseen by the dean. It was a heaven-defying level of difficulty. All those instructors were white-haired old-timers, so Long Chen appeared particularly conspicuous amongst them. Long Chen had originally been standing amongst the human rank instructors, but Heaven Master Yun Yang had called him over to stand beside him. Long Chen was trying to be low-key with this many people here, but he was forcefully pulled up, causing everyone to stare at him in dumbfounded silence. Even Bai Xiaole was astonished. Luo Bing, Mu Qingyun, and the others were all stunned. When had Long Chen become a Heaven Master? Even the other instructors didn't dare to believe their eyes. Being stared at by so many people, Long Chen felt unnatural. But now that he was here, he couldn't leave. He simply stood there, acting indifferent. Millions of disciples had gathered along with the instructors. The various experts of the academy were here. Long Chen spotted Chu Huairan, the head judge, as well as many experts that he didn't recognize. Based on their robes, they seemed to be on the level of institute heads. The fact that all of these figures were gathering shook Long Chen. Just what was happening? Just at this moment, an elder stepped forward and announced, "First let me introduce myself. I am the Deputy Dean. As for my name, I won't mention it as none of you dare to actually say it." Long Chen almost laughed. This stiff-faced old man was actually quite humorous. But it was true, no one would dare to say his name even if they knew it. We have gathered everyone today because there is an important matter to announce. I will try to keep it short, so listen closely. Within our martial heaven prefecture lies an immortal land left behind from ancient times. It is an independent star that crosses through the cracks between planes. It passes through our martial heaven prefecture occasionally, but its movements are not always stable. Sometimes it comes once every 3 years, sometimes once every few decades. What I'm saying is that it is about to appear once more. According to the 6 Ally Treaty, the disciples of the 6 major powers can all enter. This immortal land can be considered its own planar world from the archaic era. For some reason, the human race living inside of it suddenly vanished, but they left behind certain inheritances. The High Firmament Academy has some tomes that were obtained from that immortal land. Later they were translated by the Academy and given to everyone to cultivate. For example, Instructor Long Chen's Starry River of the Sky art was obtained from that immortal land. The Deputy Dean specifically looked at Long Chen. This startled everyone. Even the Deputy Dean accepted Long Chen standing amongst the Heaven Masters. In other words, he wasn't standing in the wrong place. Long Chen himself was surprised. The Starry River of the Sky art was something he was using to deceive others and cover up the 9-star Hegemon body art. After his battle with Chu Kuang, he never studied it again. That was because he was incapable of training in this technique. When others used their astral power, it was only the power of 1 star. Despite that, a slip-up could easily cause a body explosion. However, when he used it, it instantly activated the power of all 108,000 stars. Last time, he almost died. Furthermore, he kept getting a feeling that the Starry River of the Sky art was somewhat connected to the 9-star Hegemon body art. It was as if it was a simplification of the 9-star Hegemon body art. That mysterious expert had said that without condensing the 7-star, it was forbidden to use the astral power of the cosmos. In other words, Long Chen would be able to use this kind of power in the future, but not now. Hearing that this technique came from this immortal land, Long Chen was intrigued. Perhaps he might be able to gain some clue about the 9-star Hegemon body art as well. The Deputy Dean continued, "When this immortal land was discovered, there was a broken stele with many ancient immortal characters. However, due to their age, the carvings were unclear. Only 2 characters could be faintly recognized, Jialin. Thus, that place is called the Jialin Immortal Land. After the Jialin Immortal Land was discovered, it was jointly controlled by 9 major powers, and the High Firmament Academy is one of them. After so many years, only 6 of those powers remain, and our relationships are not so friendly. Thus, every time the Jialin Immortal Land opens, a storm of blood erupts. Killing people for treasures is a common occurrence inside. However, there are countless opportunities inside that are very attractive. If you can obtain any treasures inside, you can keep them for yourselves or offer them to the Academy in exchange for other treasures of equal value. The cultivation world is one where danger and opportunity exist together. The strong rise over the weak. It's a cruel world. The 6 major powers have made an agreement that any enmities that occur within the Jialin Immortal Land are limited to the Jialin Immortal Land and will not be pursued outside of it. In other words, if you are killed inside, the Academy will not get revenge for you afterward. Every disciple can choose whether or not they wish to enter the Jialin Immortal Land. The Academy will not force anything. Everyone should think this over. However, it is up to the guilds to register. Further details will be given to those who register. Due to how important this matter is, let me just give you one final warning. The chances of dying in the Jialin Immortal Land are normally over 50%. The deputy dean left after saying that. Long Chen was speechless. It seemed that he hadn't given them anything useful to go off of. No? Was that it? Once he left, the disciples erupted excitedly. Heavens, I've actually caught up to this generation's Jialin Immortal Land. So what? With your power, if you went, you'd never return. Power isn't everything. Sometimes luck is more important. The disciples began to discuss things loudly like a swarm of bees. Everyone, this is our information on the Jialin Immortal Land. The heads of the various guilds should come and take a copy, announced an elder. No need. Everyone from the Heaven Female Alliance will be participating. Bai Xiaole's voice quieted the crowd. She looked toward everyone and said, I should also mention that if you wish to enter the Jialin Immortal Land, don't hope for others to help you. It is a lawless place, a true battlefield. Your enemies will be cultivators, not brainless devil creatures. Don't listen to her nonsense. Isn't killing people much simpler than killing devil creatures? A group of men like yourselves wouldn't be scared by this, right? Just at this moment, a wildly arrogant voice rang out, stunning everyone. Someone dared to contradict the first-rank expert of the Earth rankings? Everyone looked over. It was a fair-faced man whose youthful features had yet to even regress. What shocked people was that he was definitely not in his 20s but had reached the mid-divine flame realm. Who is that? Someone dared to contradict the number 1 beauty of the Academy? Even Long Chen was surprised. Was this person that legendary young master Changchuan? However, this person seemed too young. He was pretty handsome, but he gave off the feeling of a large child, having a rebellious expression. As soon as he appeared, the Heaven Female Alliance's disciples' expressions grew odd. Bai Xiaole looked cold. She then snorted, ignoring him, and without a second glance, left with her people. Seeing her leave, that man grew even more arrogant, gazing around at all the disciples and disdainfully saying, a group of useless fellows. You're actually scared by a woman. You've lost the dignity of men. Even the instructors looked at him with odd expressions. They didn't scold him, however. They were just here to give a lesson to the disciples who wished to participate. Even if it was just a last-minute lesson, it would increase the odds of them surviving ever so slightly. Heaven Master, who is this fellow? Whispered Long Chen. Heaven Master Yun Yang smiled slightly. Who he is isn't important. If you don't like him, you can beat him up if you wish. As long as you don't beat him to death, no one will care. Long Chen was even more confused. There was such a person? The academy was truly filled with marvels. Seeing the other instructors busy counting the number of people, Long Chen didn't wish to just randomly stand there like a fool. He ended up walking over to Luo Bing's side. Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun were both waiting for him. Little fellow, you are Long Chen? Long Chen ended up walking closer to that man. The latter cast his gaze at Long Chen, seemingly provoking him. Long Chen shook his head inside. This little fellow had a face asking for a beating. Not bothering with this child, he continued walking. Brat, you're asking for a beating. The man was enraged, and his figure suddenly vanished, startling everyone. Long Chen's hand only swung behind him. Just at that moment, space twisted and the man appeared there, just in time for Long Chen to send him flying with a slap. It was just as if Long Chen had known where he would come from, as if that man had intentionally thrown himself at Long Chen's hand. That man then slammed his foot in the air, causing space to shake. Like a bolt of lightning, he charged back at Long Chen. His reaction speed and quick moves were quite astonishing. Interesting. Long Chen was also surprised. This man, who seemed more like a large child, was actually decently skilled. Various afterimages appeared in the air where he passed. Hover. Pow. He was once more slapped in the face by Long Chen. This time, space quivered and powerful gusts unfurled. Long Chen's power was several times greater than before. The man shot out like a cannonball, and just as he was about to strike a stone platform, his figure suddenly vanished. He reappeared up in the sky. Spatial divine ability? Long Chen was stunned. This brat was clearly extremely young, yet he could already use a spatial divine ability. With his age, there was no way he could come into contact with such profound magical arts, so it had to be an innate divine ability. However, his divine ability was rather stiff. Long Chen could easily sense the spatial fluctuations. If this man could control this powerful divine ability, then his status was definitely not ordinary. Up in the sky, the man looked at Long Chen with overflowing battle intent. He was actually locked onto Long Chen. Seeing that, Heaven Master Yun Yang and the others sighed. Shaking their heads slightly, they seemed to pity him. Brat, you have some ability. If you can receive this next attack, I will recognize you as boss. The man's figure suddenly shook and split into 6. The 6 figures formed hand seals together. All of a sudden, space was thrown into chaos. It was as if it had been sliced apart. The space around Long Chen, to the front, back, left, right, up and down were cut off. It was as if 6 mirrors were pressing down on him from all directions, trapping Long Chen in an entirely separate world. At this moment, space shuddered as if it was about to break, and Long Chen felt it tearing at him. This was definitely an extremely terrifying divine ability. This little brat is growing more and more reckless. How can he use his innate killing move? Heaven Master Dong Ming's expression sank. He was about to interfere, but Heaven Master Yun Yang stopped him. Although his innate divine ability is powerful, with no actual effort in training, he can't threaten Long Chen. Just as Heaven Master Yun Yang said this, a cracking sound rang out. With a single point of Long Chen's finger, the 6-sided mirror became covered in cracks. Boom. After that, the 6-sided mirror exploded. It was as if a volcano had just erupted. Wild gusts blew across people's faces like blades. Up in the sky, the man turned pale and coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was injured and stared in shock. The many disciples around looked from Long Chen to that young man, not knowing what was going on. The wild gusts that erupted when the 6-sided mirror was shattered were enough to prove how terrifying that move was, but it seemed that Long Chen didn't need any effort to break it. It was simply a point of his finger. This child Long Chen isn't bad. He knows that this little fellow is just causing trouble, so he is only giving him a small lesson. Otherwise, that little fellow would be suffering much worse. Heaven Master Yun Yang smiled. Long Chen looked at that stunned young man and lightly said, "Your talent isn't bad, but your usage of your innate divine ability is too stiff. Your control is rotten. I'd advise you not to use such a technique in the future, as it's a double-sided sword. A mistake will cost you your life." This move was truly terrifying, but this young man didn't know how to use it properly. It was filled with holes. If Long Chen had wanted to kill him, all he would have had to do was wait a moment before breaking it. Then the immense backlash would have taken his life. However, this person had no killing intent, so Long Chen naturally showed some leniency toward him. After speaking, he continued walking away. "I, Bai Xiaole, keep my word. Boss, please accept this kowtow from this junior brother." The young man actually knelt on the ground toward Long Chen, stunning both disciples and instructors. The giant plaza was instantly silent. Long Chen was dumbfounded. This youngster might be young, but his talent was astonishing. He already possessed such power at such an age. Even Long Chen was amazed by his talent, but he hadn't expected this little fellow to truly call him boss, and so formally at that. Don't joke around. With your talent, any Heaven Master would be able to give you pointers to make your combat power soar. Your future prospects are limitless. Calling me boss would be a waste of your talent. Long Chen waved his hand dismissively. "I, Bai Xiaole, keep my word. After gambling and losing, how can I renege? raged Bai Xiaole. Up to you. Long Chen shook his head and continued walking toward Luo Bing and the others. Seeing Long Chen not refuse, Bai Xiaole stood up and followed him. What are you following me for? Long Chen frowned. Since I'm boss's little brother, I naturally have to follow boss. Bai Xiaole chortled, but that chortle was not a completely innocent one in Long Chen's ears. Wait a moment. You said that you are Bai Xiaole? Asked Long Chen. Yes. Then Bai Xiaole is... she's my big sister? A flesh and blood sister? Asked Long Chen in shock. Of course, otherwise wouldn't she have beaten me to death just now? Said Bai Xiaole. Your big sister is so powerful. Why not go with her? Why take me as your boss? Asked Long Chen. Tihich, how am I supposed to follow a woman? Hehe, boss, I might not be powerful, but I possess an innate spatial talent and can sense a person's strengths and weaknesses. In this regard, my sister is inferior to me. I know that you are extremely powerful, so being your little brother is definitely right for me, said Bai Xiaole. Despite being a grown-up, his face still retained a childish youth, making it seem like he was a child that hadn't grown up. With such talent, and considering that the dean is your grandfather, why be someone else's little brother? Boss, you must not know. This story is rather long. Please just finish arranging things here, and I'll explain it to you later, said Bai Xiaole somewhat helplessly. To have gained such a little brother, Long Chen felt a bit uncomfortable. He said, Long Chen, do not easily accept little brothers. Those who can call me boss are true experts. We will discuss this later. I don't care if you accept me or not. I will definitely call you boss, declared Bai Xiaole stubbornly. Long Chen shook his head. It seemed that this fellow had something wrong with his head. Ignoring him, Long Chen discussed numbers with Luo Bing and Mu Qingyun. The two of them knew a bit more about the Jialin Immortal land. It was extremely dangerous. They had to face human opponents, and that was the most terrifying thing. After a discussion, they ultimately decided that 300 members of the Unfettered Alliance and 100 members of the Luo Gate would attend. Those who could enter the Jialin Immortal land had to possess power, intelligence, and the ability to adapt rapidly to multiple possible changes. It was a comprehensive test. Just martial power alone wasn't enough, and a person's survivability was the most important here, so they needed to select people very carefully. The disciples that weren't picked were disappointed, but they all believed in Long Chen's vision. If they were to join them, there was a high chance that they would die inside. Even those that were specially picked had no guarantee of survival. It was still 50-50. In other words, half the people going in were very possibly never going to return. There was nothing to envy about them. However, while the Unfettered Alliance and the Luo Gate were rather conservative, the other guilds didn't have such reservations. Anyone that wanted to could register. They didn't limit them at all. After registering, those people picked a Heaven Master for a quick personal lesson. However, since Luo Bing and the others had Long Chen, they had no need for such a thing. After that, people quickly returned to their own residences, waiting for the news to move out. The academy had sent word that they would be moving out 3 days from now, but the exact time had yet to be confirmed. Bai Xiaole then followed Long Chen back to the Luo Gate. Luo Bing, Mu Qingyun, and the others felt like he was a shadow tagging along Long Chen, and they felt it to be a bit comical. Zhongling laughed. Bai Xiaole, that name doesn't sound domineering at all. My mom gave me that name, saying that she wanted me to live happily. The Xiao is to keep me humble. What a rotten name, said Bai Xiaole irritably. That appearance of his made Zhongling and the others laugh. He truly was just like a large child. In fact, he felt particularly pure and simple. Your name is very good. Only by recognizing the areas that you're lacking will you know what respect is. Those who know what respect is also know what gratitude is, said Luo Bing. Exactly. Brother San's name has a chin in it. No matter how small you are, you can't be smaller than a speck of dust, comforted Zhongling. That's right. Bai Xiaole's eyes brightened. It was as if he no longer felt so tied down by his name, leaving people speechless. This little fellow really was simple. Xiaole, why are your sleeves broken? Was it from Brother San's beating? Asked Zhongling suddenly, pointing at his sleeve. Ah, that? No, it was from a fight with someone else beforehand. Bai Xiaole looked and shook his head. You fought with someone else beforehand? Asked Zhongling. Yup. I heard that the Qi Gate had some genius who cultivated the plum blossom divination art. I wanted to find him for his divination skill, but he was so arrogant, saying who did I think I was to ask for his help. Then we started fighting. However, he was incredibly shameless, using his cultivation base to suppress me. He's a 4-peak expert, so I naturally couldn't beat him. I had to run, said Bai Xiaole irritably. Zhongling and Zhongxiu simply stared at him for a moment before bursting into laughter. Long Chen stared at him. His intuition told him that Bai Xiaole didn't know how to lie. Then that meant that he was telling the truth. But if that was the case, this Bai Xiaole's head was definitely not screwed on right. Bai Xiaole didn't even understand why they were laughing at him. Thinking that they were laughing because he couldn't beat that person, he got angry and was about to speak when Long Chen said, Xiaole, let me look into your eyes. Bai Xiaole was confused. He opened his eyes wide for Long Chen to look. After a moment, Long Chen sucked in a cold gasp of air. It's the legendary 3-flower pupil. When the 3 flowers converge, the 6 daos are expelled, ghosts sob, gods weep. Isn't your talent too strong? But when my mom was pregnant with me, her core was injured, resulting in my 3-flower pupils being inherently weak. Even my grandpa had no way of fixing it. I'll never be able to activate the 3-flower pupils in this lifetime. Otherwise, my big sister wouldn't be able to look down on me and treat me like I'm trash, said Bai Xiaole sadly. If it's inherently weak, it can be strengthened through other means. Perhaps I might be able to help you. Long Chen suddenly had a thought. Bai Xiaole's 3-flower pupils made him think of his own purgatory eyes. Perhaps he could borrow the method of the 3-flower pupils to unleash his purgatory eyes. Bai equals white. Xiao equals little. Lu equals happy. Originally, Long Chen didn't want to bring Bai Xiaole around. One reason was because of his special status. After all, he was Bai Shishir's little brother and the dean's grandson. Long Chen disdained getting glory using other people's status. The other reason was if Bai Xiaole followed him, then considering his perilous path, one mistake and Bai Xiaole would meet a terrible end. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the dean. Moreover, Bai Xiaole definitely had something wrong with his head. Even at such an age, his thoughts were more like a child's. If it was because of his mother's injury while being pregnant with him, that was understandable as that affected his talent. To put it bluntly, he had some deficits when it came to his intelligence. Even so, he was dead set on following Long Chen and couldn't even be shooed off, so Long Chen had him follow him for now while he thought of studying his 3-flower pupils. As Bai Xiaole was not even registered as a disciple of the Inner Academy, he couldn't join the guild. That was simple though. Long Chen had Bai Xiaole take the exam. However, when Long Chen saw the results of the exam, he almost died. 40 multiple-choice questions with some only having 2 choices, and you somehow managed to not get a single one right. Tell me, how did you manage to avoid all the right answers so accurately? With Bai Xiaole's talent in cultivation, there was no need for him to go through the normal exams. However, an Inner Academy disciple did have to go through some comprehensive tests, one of those being about fundamental knowledge. Those were all very simple questions, but Bai Xiaole somehow managed to avoid all the correct answers. Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Mu Qingyun, and the others tried not to laugh, because that might make Bai Xiaole think that they were making fun of him, but Long Chen's inconceivable expression and Bai Xiaole's innocent appearance were too much for them. Boss, this thing is too hard, exclaimed Bai Xiaole helplessly. Long Chen then took a deep breath. If Bai Xiaole really couldn't answer such simple questions, then he had a feeling that helping him activate his 3-flower pupils would be impossible. At this moment, Luo Bing comforted Bai Xiaole, seeing how pitiful he seemed. They all began to give him some tips and pointers. After all, with his high cultivation base, for him to get stuck on such a simple trial would be too much of a pity. Luo Bing, Luo Ning, Mu Qingyun, Zhongling, and Zhongxiu tried to teach him how to answer the questions. But in just a bit, Luo Ning's temper flared and she almost grabbed Bai Xiaole by the collar. In the end, she couldn't endure it any longer and left. With Luo Bing and the others' help, after 7 attempts at the exam, Bai Xiaole finally barely passed, becoming a formal inner academy disciple. He was incredibly excited. Through this interaction with Bai Xiaole, they realized that despite possessing an illustrious status, Bai Xiaole didn't get much special treatment. Other than being able to roam around the academy, he had no privileges. That was why people didn't know of him. Even when he offended someone who beat him up, no one did anything. Furthermore, despite being brother and sister, Bai Xiaole was not very close to him. According to Bai Xiaole, the two were like enemies. Bai Xiaole not only treated him very coldly, but she even treated their father coldly. It was as if she felt dislike for all men. However, the way he spoke wasn't logical. He would sometimes randomly bring up things that seemingly had nothing to do with the current topic, making it difficult for everyone to understand. Overall, they all felt him to be very pitiful. His big sister looked down on him, and his father and mother didn't really seem to care about him. Even the dean, his grandpa, was in existence almost forgotten from his memory. It seemed that his family didn't care much about familial relationships. Furthermore, according to Bai Xiaole's rambling, his father was a fierce person who often beat him. Every time, he beat Bai Xiaole half to death, leaving them questioning the veracity of such a thing. Was there really such a father in this world? This family was truly unique. Originally, Long Chen didn't like having someone following him, but seeing Bai Xiaole's pitiful appearance, he didn't have the heart to reject him. Hence, after registering, he added Bai Xiaole's name to the list for the Jialin Immortal Land. Upon learning that he could go to the Jialin Immortal Land, Bai Xiaole was so happy that he danced around like a child. Even at such an age, he had yet to leave the academy and see the outside world. As a result, Bai Xiaole became Long Chen's little attendant, following him everywhere. Now, they only needed to wait for news from the academy. While they said it would be 3 days, it was on the 4th day that it was confirmed that they would be leaving the next day. Long Chen was resting within the Luo Gate, keeping his mental realm clear so that he could be in his peak condition. However, he suddenly heard a ruckus outside, followed by Bai Xiaole's mournful wail. Startled, he rushed out to see a large middle-aged man. He was built like an iron tower and had some long facial hair. He was chasing down Bai Xiaole. Luo Bing and the others were in front of him blocking him, but with just a wave of his hand, they were sent flying. Luo Ning even coughed up blood. Bai Xiaole was terrified and was already bloody and bruised. Seeing Long Chen appear, it was as if he saw his savior. "Boss, save me." Just at this moment, the large man stamped his foot on Bai Xiaole's abdomen. It was an extremely ruthless move. Bang! Long Chen appeared in front of Bai Xiaole, stamping his right foot on that man's leg. As a result, his body shuddered, and a sharp pain burst from his foot as if he had kicked solid iron. He was forced back 2 steps. Long Chen was shocked. This person's cultivation base was not something he could see, as he didn't emit any immortal yuan fluctuations. Just his physical body was enough to knock Long Chen back. As for that man, his body swayed from the impact, and Bai Xiaole shot off. Scram! Seeing Bai Xiaole want to run, that man angrily unleashed a punch at Long Chen. This fist actually showed signs of space tearing. Under that pressure, Long Chen couldn't even breathe. It was as if his insides were being squeezed out. Boom! Long Chen's divine ring then erupted into existence behind him, and his fist became covered in dragon scales. As their 2 fists collided, its chi wave blew apart some small pavilions set up around the headquarters of the Luo Gate. The disciples inside the headquarters were also blown back miserably. It was only by summoning his divine ring and dragon scales that Long Chen was capable of just barely receiving this man's casual blow. However, his arm was now a bit numb. Scram! The man was startled. He then turned his hand, reaching out to grab Long Chen's wrist and throw him into the distance. However, just as his hand grasped down on Long Chen's wrist slipped out of his palm, flinging that man's hand away. Startled, the man furiously punched Long Chen again. This time, both of them were sent flying. Long Chen felt a sharp pain in his head, and stars swam in his eyes. He had been struck in the head by that fist, and a large lump grew out. Long Chen was enraged. He was about to summon his 6-star battle armor when a cold shout rang out. Who dares to be so brazen as to be Palace Master? Why are you here? The destruction of the Luo Gate's headquarters had caused an alarm, and other experts rushed over. But when they saw that man, their eyes almost popped out of their heads. Luo Bing and the others were stunned. This fiendish man had come to the Luo Gate, and without even saying anything, started beating Bai Xiaole as soon as he saw him. He was like a wild dragon in terms of power, sending them flying without the slightest ability to fight back. Just the wave of his hand unleashed a wild gust that they couldn't resist. This person was called Palace Master? These experts that had been drawn over here by the alarm were from the Battle God Palace. Hence, for them to call him this and their shocked expressions. This Palace Master was also shocked. Blood was leaking out of his mouth. Just now, he had struck Long Chen, but Long Chen had also struck him. While Long Chen was left with a lump on his head, the corner of the Palace Master's mouth was split open by Long Chen's fist. These experts were all stunned, looking from Long Chen to the Palace Master. "Brat, you have some ability. Report your name," barked that man. Long Chen was dumbfounded. The academy only had one palace, the Battle God Palace. Since these people were from the Battle God Palace and had called him Palace Master, Long Chen had actually fought against the head of the Battle God Palace? Before Long Chen could even reply, Bai Xiaole, who had been wailing like he was castrated, ran over, hiding behind Long Chen and shouting, "Old fellow, are you afraid now? Other than bullying me, what else can you do? Let me tell you. Make sure you don't fall when you hear who this is. This is the Academy's mighty and famous boss Long San, who is like the sun in the sky, a dragon in the sea." Curiously, Bai Xiaole's mouth became quite adept at this time. They were orderly. He only saw the blood leaking out of the Palace Master's mouth and not the lump on Long Chen's head. Thinking that the Palace Master wasn't a match for Long Chen, Bai Xiaole became completely unbridled. "Now that I have a boss, I have a backer. You think you can beat me? Then you'll have to ask my boss to see if he consents. If you have guts, then come. Have a real battle between men with my boss. Bring out all your power, and my boss will beat you with just a single hand until you piss yourself." While Bai Xiaole grew crazily arrogant, Long Chen himself was lacking confidence. That man was the master of the Battle God Palace, and his cultivation base was at an unknown realm. Let alone an expert like this, even those existences like Zhan Feng or Wang Chong could crush Long Chen with a single palm. Long Chen sighed inside. "Bai Xiaole, you really view your boss highly. You want me to beat him with just a single hand?" However, Long Chen didn't reveal any fear on the outside. "Little brat, I'm beating you for your own good," raged the Palace Master. Do you think I'm a child?" snorted Bai Xiaole disdainfully. "Stop wasting words. I'll show you my boss's peerless divine power." Seeing Bai Xiaole's confidence, Long Chen had an urge to slap him. Was there really someone who conned their bosses like this? But even if he was being conned, he couldn't explain himself. The arrogance from the depths of his soul wouldn't allow him to lower his head. Right now, the Palace Master was ashen with rage. Just as he opened his mouth, space shook and a burst of fragrance blew through the air. A middle-aged woman in green robes appeared. She looked to be in her 30s and had a beautiful appearance, her aura indescribable. It was as if the entire world was under her control. Upon seeing her, Long Chen's heart jumped. This was a terrifying expert. As soon as she appeared, she saw the blood stain on the Palace Master's mouth and laughed. "You're injured. If you saw it, just keep it to yourself. Why do you have to mention it?" The Palace Master had healed his wound without anyone noticing what technique he used. The woman didn't mind. She then looked at Bai Xiaole and smiled warmly. "Xiaole, come hug your mom." Long Chen and the others came to a sudden understanding. So this woman was Bai Xiaole's mother. Then the man had to be his father. It seemed that Bai Xiaole hadn't been spouting nonsense when he said that his father was constantly beating him and was extremely fierce. Bai Xiaole hid behind Long Chen. Looking at that woman, he shook his head. "No, both of you are on the same side. One white face and one black face, one giving candy and one giving slaps. Now that I have a boss, I've learned how to escape your devil claws. Long Chen, Luo Bing, and the others were all surprised. Bai Xiaole's mind was actually quite good today. His line of thinking was surprisingly clear. Even the palace master and that middle-aged woman were astonished. As Bai Xiaole's parents, they knew Bai Xiaole's issues the best. Although he had inherited immense talent, in terms of intelligence, he had some congenital deficiencies, resulting in them being unable to raise him like a normal person. However, today, his line of thinking was very clear. He even saw through the two of them and the methods that they had used against him for so many years. We'll leave things here today. Brat, I'll remember that punch of yours, said the palace master coldly. Long Chen rubbed the lump on his head and snorted, I'll also remember that punch of yours. If you don't like it, you can suppress your cultivation base to the divine flame realm and we can fight again. The palace master's cultivation base was so high that Long Chen couldn't even sense it. But after suffering this much, he was extremely irritated. If the palace master was willing to suppress his cultivation base down to his level, Long Chen was willing to have a real fight with him now. What nonsense! It's possible to suppress one's realm, but you can't do it when you are 3 realms apart. Long Chen, don't be so irrational to the palace master, said one of the experts of the Battle God Palace. Long Chen was actually provoking their esteemed palace master. They couldn't accept it. Alright, you should go back now. I'll exchange a few words with this little fellow, said the middle-aged woman. The palace master glared at Long Chen and stepped away. Just like that, he vanished into space. Hey, you're going to run? Shouted Long Chen. Don't worry, we'll compensate you, said the middle-aged woman with a smile. Alright, then due to Xiaole's face, I won't quibble with you about the other things. If it was someone else, I would definitely demand some cost of living expenses for my brothers who are struggling to get by, said Long Chen. Suddenly, a ray of light fell out of nowhere. Long Chen and the middle-aged woman both vanished, shocking everyone else present. Crack, 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 boom. It felt as if countless chains were binding him. In that instant, the 9-star Hegemon body art automatically activated, and the primal chaos bead shook intensely. The surrounding space exploded. When the space around him shattered, the middle-aged woman once more appeared in front of Long Chen. They were in a desolate world, and they could see the stars in the distance from here. As expected, you are a dangerous person. The middle-aged woman looked at Long Chen with some shock. Are you testing me? Asked Long Chen darkly. The middle-aged woman smiled slightly. Don't be angry. As my son's boss, you can count as my junior. I'm just joking with you. Bai Xiaole's mother was truly terrifying. It was unknown what method she had used, but she had actually provoked the power of the primal chaos bead. If she was an enemy, he would be truly doomed. That was his greatest secret. However, he was still angry. Even though he didn't sense any malice from her, his expression was ugly. The 9-star line does have explosive tempers. I already said it was just a joke. Why do you need to look like that? After all, if my foolish son wishes to be with you, I naturally must test you to see who you are. But I didn't think you were such a dangerous person, said the woman. Long Chen felt profoundly powerless. This person had also seen through his identity. Then it wouldn't be too long before he was exposed. Don't worry. I was able to see through your status because our line has a certain connection with the 9-star line. Furthermore, I used my innate ability just now. There are not many inheritances in this world that my divine ability cannot see through. For it to be repelled in such a domineering fashion from just a look, even forcing karma onto me, then it could only be a handful of techniques. That still wasn't enough to confirm that you were a 9-star heir though, so I tested you with my words just now, and well, everything is confirmed now, said Bai Xiaole's mother with a smile. Long Chen bitterly smiled. I really am still too young. I should have been able to tell you were a 9-star heir from the start. However, your character is different from other 9-star heirs, so I had to test you. The 9-star heirs I know of are all lone wolves. They are so domineering and cold that no one can be near them. They are wild and dangerous. However, you are different from those 9-star heirs. You can actually get along very well with others. I cannot comprehend such a thing, said Bai Xiaole's mother. Get along very well with others? Long Chen shook his head. He hadn't been in the academy for long, but he already had enemies everywhere. Did that count as someone who got along well with others? 9-star heirs are solitary existences with no family or friends. They have nothing tying them down, nothing that they care about. They are the bane of others' existence, madmen no one dares to provoke, because as soon as a 9-star heir is provoked, they will fight recklessly without even caring about their own lives, all to protect the dignity of 9-star heirs. Due to this character, 9-star heirs rarely manage to grow up. They don't know how to endure and will jump into obvious traps without hesitation. It's a distressing level of stupidity, but no one can change their character. You, however, are different from them. You have a slight softness to you. That slight softness might let you live longer. If you were the same as other 9-star heirs, even if I had to break my son's legs, I wouldn't let him go with you, said Bai Xiaole's mother. Senior, you've seen other 9-star heirs? Probed Long Chen. You will also see them in the future. Bai Xiaole's mother didn't directly answer him. Instead, she gave him a square jade plate. If you encounter some danger that you cannot handle, you can crush this. It will save your life. I leave Xiaole to you. After saying that, Bai Xiaole's mother vanished. As for Long Chen, he appeared in the ruined headquarters of the Luo Gate with the jade plate in his hand. Boss, did my mom say anything to you? Did she threaten you to drive me away? Asked Bai Xiaole worriedly. No, not at all. Your mom has given permission for you to follow me. Long Chen shook his head and probed Bai Xiaole's injuries. He was injured all over, with even his bones broken and his internal organs damaged. That father of his had not been light-handed. However, Long Chen found that these wounds were healing on their own without any medical aid. Furthermore, there was some kind of special energy within those wounds. Long Chen was startled and suddenly understood. Bai Xiaole's father definitely had his own reason for beating Bai Xiaole. He was infusing his own energy into Bai Xiaole's body. That would be his foundation for cultivating. To send his own life's core into someone else's body, that was not so simple. It came at an immense price, like shortening a person's lifespan. It was no wonder Bai Xiaole's cultivation base progressed so quickly even with such low intelligence. So it was all thanks to Bai Xiaole's father. Long Chen also realized what his father and mother were thinking. In order to keep their energy locked within Bai Xiaole's body longer, they needed to leave a deeper impression. To leave a deep impression on Bai Xiaole, it needed to either be a happy memory or a painful memory. Painful memories were always remembered more deeply. Thus, every few months, the palace master would viciously beat Bai Xiaole. But every time he did, his own heart was pained. He couldn't say it, but neither of them had any other solutions. Realizing this, Long Chen was moved inside. He couldn't help thinking of his own parents. If he could see them, he would be willing to be beaten every day. Xiaole, take this jade. This is my peerless killing divine talisman. If your life is in danger, crush it and boss will descend from the heavens to save you. Long Chen handed the jade plate to Bai Xiaole. Long Chen didn't say that it was given by Bai Xiaole's mother. He knew that in Bai Xiaole's mind, his father and mother weren't worthy of trust. Since Bai Xiaole treated Long Chen's words as true, he excitedly took it. He was very careful, as if afraid he might accidentally break it. Within the void, with layers of space folded around them so no one could see them, Bai Xiaole's father and mother quietly watched as Long Chen handed the jade plate to Bai Xiaole. Bai Xiaole's mother sighed. 9-star heirs really are arrogant. They disdain accepting other people's favors. That little fellow's not bad. He's worthy of being my son's boss. Fine, I won't quibble with him over that punch, said his father. Zhantong, do you think that this is the will of the heavens? If it wasn't to save that 9-star heir back then, I wouldn't have been injured, and Xiaole wouldn't be like this. Now Xiaole has encountered Long Chen, and he has changed. Is this the workings of destiny? Bai Xiaole's mother looked at Long Chen and Bai Xiaole. Who cares if it's destiny? If it weren't for my father not permitting it, I'd have long since dragged out that bastard and gotten our vengeance. Who cares about a disciple of Brahma? If they didn't have numbers, and it was instead 1 against 1, I'd have definitely been able to kill him, said the palace master irritably. The dean's wisdom is unfathomable. He understands the workings of the heavens, so he naturally has his own reasons for not letting us get revenge. Our vision is too short-sighted. We should listen to him, advised Bai Xiaole's mother. Fine. I won't bother with those things. Since my father can accept a 9-star heir into the academy, I feel like sooner or later, we'll have another chance to fight against Jialuo. If that chance comes, I'll definitely kill him for you and Xiaole. Alright, let's go. However, I feel like your chances for revenge aren't high. What? Are you looking down on me? Fool, I just mean that you won't have that chance. Within the cycle of karma, the one to settle things might not be you. Jialuo injured me, but he has also slain an unknown number of 9-star heirs. Bai Xiaole's mother looked at Long Chen with a profound smile. Her actual combat power was not as high as the palace master's, but she had a special innate divine ability to see through a person's potential. Bai Xiaole had also inherited a bit of that ability. He might not even be aware of it, but this was why he was determined to follow Long Chen. As for herself, she was even clearer than him on just how terrifying Long Chen was. This was something that even the palace master was unaware of. I have a feeling that rivers of blood will flow this time in the Jialin Immortal land, said Bai Xiaole's mother. The day finally arrived to move out. Of the almost 5 million disciples of the Inner Academy, over 1 million had registered to participate. Seeing those excited faces full of anticipation, as if they would be finding all sorts of treasures inside, Long Chen sighed inside. The Academy's attitude was truly one of letting nature take its course. A portion of these disciples only possessed very average power. Once they went in, if a battle occurred, the chances of them surviving were far too low. Long Chen couldn't see any toughness in them. They were not true warriors at all. When the threat of death came, under that pressure, just how much of their power would they be able to unleash? The Academy had explained the danger to them. But clearly, many people didn't care about the Academy's words. Long Chen thought of what the sweeping elder said. A person's fate was very difficult to change. You could help them once, but you couldn't help them for a lifetime. If they were fated to grow up, then suffering earlier would be best, so the Academy didn't meddle with disciples too much. This attitude looked a bit cold, but this kind of attitude had its own wisdom behind it. Before this, Long Chen hadn't been able to understand, but he gradually figured it out. The Academy's attitude was in accordance with the laws of the heavenly Daos. Although he didn't entirely approve, he had to admit that those who followed the heavenly Daos always lived a bit longer. He felt that the sweeping elder's words were correct, and he had even questioned himself. But he quickly found that his own attitude wasn't wrong either. That was because what everyone was pursuing was different. The Academy's attitude was one for long survival, while Long Chen's attitude was one willing to be a brilliant firework. As long as the firework was bright enough, as long as all his power was unleashed at that moment, once the firework was over, once everything was over, he would have no regrets. At this moment, with some light encouragement from the deputy dean, millions of Inner Academy disciples set foot onto the transportation formation. What Long Chen hadn't expected was that the one leading the way was Chu Huairan. Long Chen's expression changed slightly. What was the Academy thinking to let that clown lead the way? Was that to make things hard on him? However, he didn't say anything. Chu Huairan was the one arranging the order for people to enter, and Long Chen saw a sinister glint in his eyes. Long Chen then quickly understood the meaning behind that smile. The Academy's disciples were going through the transportation formation in batches and then taking flying boats to the Jialin Immortal land. However, Long Chen was in the same batch as the Luo Gate, Heaven Melting Valley, and Chu Alliance. Other than the Heaven Melting Valley and the Chu Alliance, the other guilds in that batch were all their allies who were hostile to the Luo Gate. As for the Unfettered Alliance, they were sent through a different batch. Chu Huairan was intentionally separating them. Long Chen, how can the Academy do this? Shouldn't we? Luo Bing was enraged. The Academy was being crazy. What was the meaning behind this? She wanted to demand her rights. This was practically a death trap. No need. I understand what the Academy is thinking. Long Chen shook his head, smiling. Their group then entered the transportation formation and vanished. Heaven Master Yun Yang and Heaven Master Dong Ming were standing together. Watching Long Chen vanish, Heaven Master Dong Ming shook his head. I really can't understand what the higher-ups are thinking. Are they not afraid of letting Long Chen down and giving up hope on the academy? Heaven Master Yun Yang smiled. Letting him down? No, Long Chen won't feel that way. He'll be grateful. Long Chen and the others appeared on top of a large mountain surrounded by mist. It was as if this was the end of the world. It was filled with a desolate and ancient feeling. At the end of the mist, he saw a star slowly rising and getting closer and closer. Its light gradually infected this entire space. This was the Jialin Immortal Land, a lost world, a star whose inheritance had been severed suddenly, a place filled with unknowns. When that star appeared, the first batch led by Bai Xiaole flew toward the star. Then it was the second batch, the third batch. Long Chen was part of the fourth batch. When he got close to the star, space began to twist. The star had its own force field. Long Chen felt that the flow of time here was different from the immortal world, but he was unable to grasp whether it was faster or slower. Long Chen suddenly thought of when he had entered the immortal world. His age was somehow different from when he was on the martial heaven continent. Perhaps that was related to the flow of time. The martial heaven continent's laws were incomplete, and the Jialin Immortal Land was the same. This was a remnant star. The High Firmament Academy's disciples quickly flew into the Jialin Immortal Land in flying boats. But suddenly, Long Chen's flying boat shook intensely. An explosive sound came from the tail. The tail of their flying boat had been struck by another flying boat, causing their speed to drop. Courting death. Luo Ning was enraged. The flying boat that struck them belonged to the third-ranking guild, the Heaven Melting Valley. Sorry, we slipped up with the controls. Long Yenzong's lazy voice rang out. His voice didn't contain the slightest apologetic tone, and it was extremely provoking instead. They damaged our flying boat to lower our speed so we can't escape. They are truly planning on tearing off any face and fighting with us, said Luo Bing. The Luo Gate's flying boat quickly fell to the rear. The ones at the front were already charging into the Jialin Immortal Land, but they didn't immediately scatter. Instead, they formed an encirclement. The ones in the batches ahead of them had rushed off in search of treasures. Only Long Yenzong, Chu Yang, and the others slowed down. Bastards, you dare to be so openly brazen? Luo Bing clenched her teeth furiously. Chu Yang and the others had to have obtained the tacit approval of the academy to act like this to them. Clearly, the higher-ups have been bought by the Chu family. We can only fight to the death. Luo Bing took a deep breath, and her blood qi began to slowly circulate. However, they were facing so many experts. Despite having a cool expression, she was full of nervousness inside. She couldn't help looking at Long Chen. She saw that Long Chen was smiling. His mood was particularly good. You should have more confidence in the academy. The higher-ups of the academy cannot be bought by those idiots from the Chu family. It's the opposite. We should thank the academy for giving us such a good opportunity. Luo Ning, detonate the speed talisman and crash into the Heaven Melting Valley's flying boat. Let's get off to a good, red start. Long Chen was already walking to the front of the flying boat. Following his orders, the rear of the flying boat exploded. The slow flying boat suddenly shot toward the Heaven Melting Valley's flying boat like a bolt of lightning. Ah, Long Chen, you wish to die together? Keep dreaming. Long Yenzong's mocking voice rang out. After that, formation runes appeared on top of their flying boat. Boom. The flying boats crashed into each other but were separated by the formation runes. The two flying boats were kept 300 meters apart. Die together? You think you're qualified? Long Chen sneered. A 3,000-meter sword containing endless flame energy suddenly slashed toward Long Yenzong's boat. Boom. The Heaven Melting Valley's flying boat was able to block a flying boat but not a divine flame sword composed of 10,000 heaven-shaking swords. Hence, the flying boat was cut in two, and the disciples inside didn't even have a chance to scream before being turned to ash. I really have to thank the High Firmament Academy. Thank you for this chance to start a slaughter. Icy killing intent filled Long Chen's face. It was as if a slumbering dragon was waking with anger. Only one person fled from the broken flying boat. That was Long Yenzong, a mix of shock and anger on his face. Before he could say anything, Long Chen stamped down on the air and shot toward him. Didn't you want to fight me? Then let's fight. Long Chen's flying boat had originally been surrounded and forced into a passive position. However, Long Chen struck against the heaven-melting valley first. Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and the others didn't even have a chance to react before Long Chen attacked. He had given them no warning. And by the time they reacted, they saw Long Chen already covered in flames and surrounded by runes. 10,000 flame swords bloomed like a lotus and slashed at Long Yenzong. Long Chen, today is the day of your death. Long Yenzong was furious. Just now, if it wasn't for his divine flame protection, he would have died. Long Chen was too vicious. In the face of Long Chen's attack, Long Yenzong formed hand seals, and sacred chanting rang out. His flames soared. As his flames rose, a giant flame beast appeared inside, and it made the world shudder. It then opened its mouth wide and swallowed Long Chen. Even space shuddered as if it was being devoured. This was a terrifying magical art. Boom! That flame beast's head suddenly exploded and 10,000 flame swords shot out. This flame beast was unable to endure a single blow from Long Chen's heaven-shaking swords. When his flame beast exploded, Long Yenzong coughed up a mouthful of blood. That was his life spirit beast. Although he hadn't fully raised it, its power was still astonishing. It was one of his strongest killing moves. However, Long Chen's flame swords were incomparably sharp, not only piercing through his flame runes but also his beast. His spirit beast's soul was suppressed. It had to be said that Long Yenzong was very unlucky. His flame spirit beast was a merger between the spirit of fire and a devil beast spirit. It was something almost indestructible, capable of freely changing form. As long as the main body didn't die, the flame spirit beast wouldn't die either. However, coincidentally, Long Chen's heaven-shaking swords were made from the devil crystal of the explosive flame devil crocodile. It contained the spiritual pressure of that devil crocodile, which happened to suppress Long Yenzong's spirit beast. That was why his flame spirit beast was unable to bear a single blow. The destruction of his flame spirit beast caused Long Yenzong to feel like his head was being split open. He vaguely sensed Long Chen rushing over at him, and he hastily summoned a flame shield. But that flame shield had just formed when Long Chen's fist blasted it apart. Continuing onward, Long Chen's fist struck Long Yenzong in the chest. Boom! Long Yenzong's body exploded and turned into a blood mist. This explosion of red was the final brilliance of Long Yenzong's life. Long Yenzong died. Luo Bing and Luo Ning couldn't believe their eyes. The third-rank expert had been killed just like that? It was too fast, so fast that it ended before it even started. Just as Long Chen struck Long Yenzong, he was surrounded by over 10 figures. Those were the top experts of the various guilds. 5 of them were even the heads of their guilds. Originally, they had come to help Long Yenzong prevent Long Chen from running. In their eyes, Long Chen would definitely die against Long Yenzong without their interference. Hence, they had never expected that the terrifying Long Yenzong would be killed with a single punch without even having a chance to unleash his true power. Using the Nirvana scripture in front of me? Long Chen sneered. If Long Yenzong had used a different technique, it would have been more difficult to kill him. However, the Nirvana scripture was something etched deep in Long Chen's bones, so the flame energy that Long Yenzong had summoned with the Nirvana scripture could be easily controlled by Long Chen. That flame beast was not made purely of the power of the Nirvana scripture, so it required some effort to destroy. However, the flame shield that Long Yenzong had summoned at the end was entirely composed of flame energy from the Nirvana scripture, so Long Chen's punch blasted through it without any resistance. Long Yenzong's flames had even ended up assisting Long Chen's punch. Long Yenzong didn't even understand how he died. He probably still had many powerful techniques up his sleeve, but regretfully, he would never have a chance to use them in the future. At this moment, Long Chen suddenly reached out and clawed the space behind him, his voice like thunder. Get out here. A flame claw appeared in the air, tearing the space and revealing a figure. This figure was originally hidden within the void but was exposed by Long Chen's claw. Everyone was shocked. None of them realized there was someone hidden there. This figure's concealing arts were truly terrifying. Just at this moment, an arrow silently appeared, shooting straight for Long Chen's head. The arrow truly did pierce through a head, which then exploded. But that head wasn't Long Chen's. It was a human shield he had dragged out of space. The dogs of the Bloodkill Hall are getting worse and worse. With such little ability, you still dare to try to kill people? Long Chen sneered and tossed away the headless corpse in his hand. He sneered toward a distant location. In the distance, behind a large tree, a pair of sharp eagle-like eyes could be seen through the green leaves. The sharp eyes looked completely shocked. His sneak attack arrow had been the preparation for Shadow to kill Long Chen, but unexpectedly, Shadow, whose concealing arts had never failed, was exposed by Long Chen and then killed by his arrow. This person was one of Chu Yang's 4 great killers, Eagle Eye. The one that had died to his arrow was another one of his killers, Shadow. Long Chen had used Shadow to block Eagle Eye's arrow. Hence, Eagle Eye suddenly felt a chill on his back. He immediately realized that something was wrong, and he hastily retreated. Boom. However, he was one step too late. Space exploded and a dragon claw reached out, wiping Eagle Eye and the tree he hid in out of existence. Lei Long had silently appeared, killing Eagle Eye. This terrifying assassin who had spent his life hiding in the dark and had taken the lives of countless experts was dead the moment his position was exposed. A group of fools with no respect. Since you wish to be Chu Yang's dogs, you can accompany Chu Yang to hell. Violet lightning runes and red flame runes wove together in the air. 2 dragons spun around each other. Double dragon destruction. Lei Long and Hua Long's powers mixed, forming a whirlpool of death that suddenly compressed and exploded, devouring all the surrounding space. Even Chu Yang, who was standing on the edge of the battlefield, was devoured by it. Long Chen's attack was earth-shattering. The countless disciples of the academy who had gone ahead and in the rear stared in shock as those 2 dragons caused massive destruction. They didn't even know what was happening. Boom. Flames and lightning devoured the heavens, stunning Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and the others. Long Chen was going too fast. In just the blink of an eye, he had killed Long Yenzong, Shadow, and Eagle Eye. Luo Bing and the others had been thinking of how to help Long Chen when he suddenly unleashed such a large move. Even they were drawn into it. Normally, experts had to accumulate power and cause a manifestation of the heavenly Daos to unleash such a huge move. But Long Chen's technique came from Lei Long and Hua Long, so it could be unleashed far quicker. This was one of their most terrifying aspects. They could unleash terrifying power without any warning. Is this bastard trying to kill us? Luo Ning was pale with fright. This terrifying power covered them as well, and they didn't have time to defend themselves. The lightning and flames would wipe them out of existence. Hee, don't worry, I'm here. Boss has long since told me to be prepared. Bai Xiaole snickered and had already formed hand seals. As a result, space shook and mirrors appeared, forming a spatial defense around them. Bai Xiaole's spatial defense was struck by the lightning and flame energies, which crashed upon like a raging tsunami. The furious sound shook people's ears. Cracks covered Bai Xiaole's spatial mirror, causing him to jump in alarm. This lightning and flame energy wasn't even targeting him, but his spatial divine art was already on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, his barrier held. When the lightning and flame energy faded, Luo Bing and the others were shocked to see that the original space they were in was now a giant hole. A disgusting stench came from the scorched earth. As for those experts surrounding Long Chen, they were all gone without a trace. Boom. Suddenly, Long Chen shot out like a bolt of lightning, smashing the earth. Cracks instantly covered the land. In the distance, the ground exploded and 3 figures flew out. One of those 3 people was Chu Yang, while the other 2 were unfamiliar faces. They were short like dwarves, and they both had a rune flickering on their foreheads. Those runes contained heavy earth energy, but they were now very dim. Both of them were filled with horror. These two should be the other two members of Chu Yang's 4 killers. They seem to be earth element experts specialized in hiding underground, said Luo Bing. Even Chu Yang hadn't expected Long Chen to unleash such a terrifying move. It came without any warning. If it weren't for those two pulling him underground at the last minute to avoid Long Chen's double dragon destruction, then he would definitely be heavily injured. Just as the 3 of them popped out of the earth, a giant flame sword appeared. The terrifying heat caused heaven and earth to twist. It slashed down mercilessly. In just a few blinks of an eye, Long Chen unleashed multiple terrifying moves. They came one after another with no pause to store up energy, giving his opponents no chance to breathe. Chu Yang was shocked by these continuous attacks. Long Chen didn't give him any chance to store up energy. Furthermore, Long Chen's previous punch that forced them out of the ground had caused Chu Yang's blood chi to flip inside of him, not even giving him a chance to activate his bloodline power. With his blood chi fluctuating so much, activating his bloodline power could very likely cause a huge injury. At this moment, Chu Yang roared and a golden furnace appeared above his head. It actually had the exact same shape, size, and runes as the Daynight furnace. Boom! Long Chen's sword slashed on the Daynight furnace. As a result, the huge flame sword exploded, transforming into smaller flame swords as they could no longer maintain the merger. On the other hand, the Daynight furnace sank, and an immense power passed down through it. Chu Yang coughed up a mouthful of blood. As for the 2 earth cultivators, without making a sound, they were blasted to bits by the power that passed through the Daynight furnace. Dust to dust, earth to earth. They once more became one with the earth. Long Chen was not surprised to see the Daynight furnace appear at all. Lord Brahma and Fallen Daynight were 2 jackals of the same tribe, and their believers were connected. For Lord Brahma's dogs to have Fallen Daynight's things were very normal. However, this Daynight furnace was different from the Martial Heaven Continent's Daynight furnace that was in Pill Valley's possession. This Daynight furnace was a true spirit item of the immortal world. Not only was it an inheritance item, but it also contained a supreme divine might. Having summoned it so hastily, Chu Yang was unable to use any of the Daynight furnace's true power. But the fact that it was still able to block Long Chen's combined 10,000 swords proved just how tough it was. When Long Chen formed hand seals once more, the 10,000 swords merged into one and slashed toward Chu Yang, not giving the latter a chance to rest. Just like before, the giant sword fell and Chu Yang used the Daynight furnace to block. As a result, the giant sword split apart once again, while the Daynight furnace was sent flying. Chu Yang then coughed up 3 mouthfuls of blood, and his aura became chaotic. That attack had clearly given him a serious injury. Even with all his trump cards, Long Chen didn't give him a chance to use them, so he finally felt a trace of fear. With Long Chen's immense combat experience and refined control over the tempo, he didn't give Chu Yang any time to activate his bloodline power, faith energy, or inheritance power. Moreover, all of Chu Yang's helpers were now dead, and no one could give him time to breathe. He would definitely die if this continued. The 10,000 swords once more gathered. However, this time, they were clearly dimmer than before. The Daynight furnace possessed immense divine power, so when the swords landed on it, it resulted in an immense backlash. Hence, after 2 clashes, the heaven-shaking swords had reached their limit. They were on the verge of collapse. If they struck the Daynight furnace against, they would shatter and be impossible to repair. But Long Chen didn't care. All he knew was that with one more attack, he could definitely give Chu Yang a grave wound. He didn't want to give him any chance to recover. Even if he lost these heaven-shaking swords, it didn't matter. He could always raise another batch. Seeing the heaven-shaking swords gather once more, Chu Yang clenched his teeth and suddenly crushed a jade plate. Just as the heaven-shaking swords prepared to fall once more, a giant hand appeared. Long Chen's heaven-shaking swords were swatted away by the hand. Long Chen, you little ingrate, die. Space twisted and a sinister-faced elder appeared, his hand reaching toward Long Chen's throat. Chu Huiren. Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and the others cried out in shock. This jade talisman that Chu Yang had just crushed was a transportation talisman. Since Chu Huairan had led people here and was on the outer edge of the Jialin Immortal land, he was just barely able to be transported to this location. This was one of the reasons that Chu Yang had chosen to make his move here. Once they were deeper within the Jialin Immortal land, they would be well beyond the laws of the immortal world, and Chu Huairan would be unable to enter. With the threat of death hanging over him, Chu Yang had no choice but to use this transportation talisman. It could be said that he had marked himself with a seal of shame for the rest of his life by doing this. After working together with so many experts just to kill Long Chen, they ended up being slaughtered instead, and Chu Yang was forced to ask for aid from others. That was the greatest humiliation. However, when the other option was losing his life, Chu Yang naturally chose to be humiliated. Chu Huairan appeared, and the entire world seemed to freeze. This was the pressure of a supreme expert, something no one could resist. In front of Chu Huairan, they were like ants. The difference in realms was too great. Chu Huairan's appearance caused Luo Bing and the others to despair. However, Long Chen only looked at him contemptuously. Even with death at hand, you still dare to sneer at me. Have a taste of this old man's methods today. Chu Huairan glared at Long Chen viciously. His hatred of Long Chen was bone deep. Hence, he didn't want to kill Long Chen so quickly. He wanted him to suffer. Just as Chu Huairan's hand approached Long Chen's throat, a jade plate appeared in Long Chen's hand. This jade plate was inscribed with the characters, High Firmament. When Chu Huairan saw that jade plate, his expression completely changed. Before he could react at all, the High Firmament characters glowed. After that, a wave of energy shot out, and Chu Huairan's overwhelming pressure instantly vanished. A mysterious energy was restricting his cultivation base, causing his aura to plummet to the divine flame realm. In that instant, Chu Huairan's soul almost fled in terror. He looked at Long Chen like the latter was a nightmare. He then tried to stabilize his body and retreat, but with his cultivation base suppressed to the divine flame realm, he couldn't stop. He continued flying toward Long Chen in panic. Long Chen then grabbed Chu Huairan's throat. With his cultivation base suppressed, he was even weaker than an ordinary divine flame disciple. Now, he was like a chicken before Long Chen. How can you have the Deputy Dean's High Firmament Sacred Tablet? Chu Huairan was so terrified that his head was blank. There were 10 High Firmament Sacred Tablets in the Academy, and they were jointly used to activate the most important mysterious land of the Academy. In his thousands of years at the Academy, Chu Huairan had only seen the Deputy Dean use it once. That was why he recognized it. The tablet had a terrifying ability to suppress an opponent's cultivation base to the same level as the user. As Chu Huairan had advanced out of the divine flame realm for countless years and long since forgotten how to use the power of the divine flame realm, suppressing his cultivation base to this level was no different than crippling his cultivation base. Do you not know? The Academy sent you this time for a great purpose. Today is a good day. I will kill an old man as an offering to the heavens. Long Chen then clenched his hand, crushing Chu Huairan's neck, removing his head from his body. A terrifying expert was killed just like that. With his cultivation base suppressed, he was unable to bring out any of his power and ended up dying to a divine flame realm novice. Long Chen then tossed Chu Huairan's head aside and shot after Chu Yang. Chu Yang was in the midst of recovering, and his blood chi fluctuations gradually rose in preparation for activating his bloodline power. However, Long Chen didn't give him that chance. The reason he didn't waste words with Chu Huairan was to prevent Chu Yang from fully recovering. In this situation, he could easily kill Chu Yang. Chu Yang's expression was gloomy. Suddenly, the Daynight furnace above his head unleashed divine light that enveloped him. As a result, Long Chen's sword fell and ended up only striking an afterimage. Chu Yang and the Daynight furnace had vanished with some unknown method. In the distance, countless disciples of the Academy stared in horror at Long Chen. The experts from the first and second batches had gone deep into the Jialin Immortal land, but the remaining disciples were treated to a shocking sight. Long Chen was like a devil king from hell. He had killed almost everyone in the fourth batch. Hence, those who had offended the Unfettered Alliance or the Luo Gate were now green with terror, afraid that Long Chen would settle that debt with them now. "Boss, you're so strong." Bai Xiaole cried out excitedly, his eyes full of worship. Ultimately, Long Chen failed to eliminate Chu Yang. He sighed inside. It truly was a bit unrealistic to kill an expert like Chu Yang with no effort. Looking at those terrified disciples, Long Chen clasped his hands behind him and coldly said, Long Chen, never bully the weak. Quite a few of you have provoked the Unfettered Alliance, the Luo Gate, and myself. But as long as you don't test my bottom line, I won't bother quibbling with you. You don't need to worry about me settling matters later." Hearing his words, those disciples sighed with relief. They previously didn't know Long Chen's power because he had never displayed it in the inner academy, but after slaying so many experts this time, he shook them to the core. In an instant, their respect for him rose. Up ahead is the Jialin Immortal land. You should all listen well. Other than the Academy's people, everyone from the other 5 powers is an enemy. If you want to live, don't be stupid. In the past openings of the Jialin Immortal land, our Academy's people were always robbed and suffering. This time, with Boss Long San present, such a thing will not be permitted. It has always been the Golden Bell Tigers, the Clear River Wolves, and the High Firmament Sheep. Today, I'll show them that there's a new boss in the High Firmament Academy. Bai Xiaole followed her own path and won't be joining us, so don't hope for them to help you. But I am different. I'm not good at searching for treasures, but I'm good at fighting. I won't quibble about the past. Now that Boss Long San has set foot on this land, then this place is now under my name. As members of the same sect, if you encounter someone you can't beat, send out a distress signal, and I will definitely rush over as long as I receive it. Boss Long San didn't come here to search for treasures. He came to fight for treasures. Conveniently, I can wipe away the humiliation left behind by the cowards before me. Good luck, everyone. Time is precious. Go search for your own treasures, but take care of yourselves. Hearing this, all these disciples were excited. In the past, all their experts only looked out for themselves, but Long Chen was willing to stand up for them. They were extremely moved, especially after having personally seen how powerful he was. Their confidence instantly rose. Countless disciples charged into the Jialin Immortal land following his words. Mu Qingyun then brought the Unfettered Alliance's people over. Mu Qingyun asked, "Brother San, are you really planning on helping them? You're not going to search for treasures with us?" Long Chen smiled. "Your brother San's luck is extremely lacking. But when it comes to plundering treasures, my success rate is quite high. Helping them is helping myself. What if you encounter their supreme experts? The 5 major powers all have powerful existences sent here this time," said Luo Bing. "Who cares about them? We still have Bai Xiaole, don't we? If things don't work out, we might as well turn everything into chaos." Long Chen laughed. That laughter was definitely sinister, leaving Luo Bing and the others speechless. Luo Bing then left with Mu Qingyun's flying boat, and they randomly picked a direction. As for Long Chen, he chose to be a nomad, flying off in a different direction. Within a mountain valley inside of the Jialin Immortal land, 2 opposing forces were fighting. One of those forces belonged to the High Firmament Academy. They had over 500 people and were surrounded. On the other hand, their opponents didn't have more numbers, but the High Firmament Academy's side was at a clear disadvantage. There were over 10 corpses on the ground already. This was a guild ranked in the 50s of the High Firmament Academy. Theoretically, their power wasn't bad, but the other side was too strong. They couldn't even break out of their encirclement. "Little sheep of the High Firmament Academy, give up and hand over all your treasures. Otherwise, all of you will be killed," sneered a large man from the opposing side. His arms were just as thick as an ordinary person's leg. "Bastards! We're too unlucky. We just found an immortal cave and were discovered." One of the Academy's disciples clenched his teeth furiously. This was just the outer region, and it was unknown just how many times people had searched through it. There shouldn't be any treasures left, but their luck was good. They ended up finding a mountain that had collapsed, exposing a natural cave. They then found several treasures and bone books inside. The weapons were so old that the item spirits had long since been extinguished. As for the bone books, they were written in characters no one recognized. Only once these disciples brought them back to the academy and their scholars translated them would they know their value. However, in any case, any ancient tome, whether it was simply history or some ancient technique, would be traded for a large sum by the academy. Sometimes the value of a single book could cause a person to reach the peak of their life in an instant. Although the academy's rules might be a bit shady, when it came to gathering such treasures, they always paid a higher price than the outside world, and they definitely wouldn't take advantage of anyone. Their public opinion in this regard was very good. Thus, these few bone books were extremely precious to the disciples. But before they could even celebrate, they were discovered by this group of experts and surrounded. A fight then broke out without a word, and in the chaos, over 10 of them were slain. Only then did these people say what they wanted. "We have to persevere. I already sent the distress signal. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen will definitely come to help if he receives it," shouted a spear-wielding expert. He was doing his best to block the attacks coming from the front. "Will he really come? We have no relationship with him. We can only do our utmost for these treasures. If he doesn't come, we'll have to hand over the bone books." Despite the academy's disciples doing their best, the power disparity between the two sides was too great. In just a short moment, another dozen of their members were killed. The academy's disciples were finally afraid. In the past, their battlefields only contained devil creatures. They were able to be brave in front of devil creatures, but against true experts, they were shocked to find that the techniques and tricks they had learned were rarely useful. However, they were a team, and as long as their guild leader didn't give the word, no one dared to surrender. That would cause their comrades to collapse. Hence, they could only grit their teeth and continue fighting. "What a group of fools! Since you all want to die, kill them all," shouted the large man, who was the leader of the opposing forces. "As you wish." A lazy voice rang out from the sky. "Who's there?" The large man was startled. Looking up, he saw that a giant silver eagle had appeared in the sky. On its head stood a lean, handsome man chewing on a stalk of grass, his arms crossed in front of his chest. He had just shouted when Long Chen pointed his finger. A thin lightning arrow then shot out and blew apart the large man's head. He was the leader of the group but was killed with a single finger from Long Chen. Hence, the others were shocked, and their entire group fell into chaos. Taking advantage of the chaos, the academy's disciples concentrated their attacks and charged out of their encirclement. They had just charged out when the ground swelled. A fist-sized lotus flower exploded amongst the opposing forces. Those experts didn't even know what was going on before they were turned to ash. Of over 500 experts, only 70 to 80 remained, and quite a few were injured. The silver eagle beneath Long Chen's feet spread its wings, carrying him away like a silver shooting star. His voice rang out from a distance. "Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. If you can't even do that, then buy a block of tofu and kill yourself with it as an apology for your fallen comrades." Long Chen was already gone by the time his final words reached them. He left behind a group of the academy's disciples who still felt like they were dreaming. "Kill them. Avenge our fallen brothers." The leader of this guild finally reacted, and with a furious howl, led the charge against the horrified opponents. Their butcher's blades were mercilessly raised. "Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, you came just in time. Otherwise, we would have all died here." The rank 17 guild's leader bowed deeply to Long Chen, his eyes full of gratitude. Just now, they had encountered experts from the Clear River Palace. They were extremely tough, and without a word, had started killing. They made no mention of handing over treasures. It was as if they were only interested in killing, as if they had some deep enmity with the High Firmament Academy. The High Firmament side had over 700 people, and in the first clash, the other side killed over 100 of them. They were too strong. If Long Chen hadn't arrived, the disciples probably wouldn't be able to last an incense stick's worth of time before being completely wiped out. Long Chen shook his head. "It's not that the other side is too strong, but you are too weak. Truthfully, you're so weak that I want to curse you." Those disciples lowered their heads in shame. Despite being in the same realm, they were far weaker than the other side. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, what should we do now? Asked the guild leader, his face completely red. Long Chen thought about it. You have two choices. You can search for treasures in the outer region. Your chances of finding anything are low, but you'll also have lower chances of encountering enemies. Your second choice would be to join forces with other guilds. With more numbers, you can slowly progress deeper. The good thing is that it will be safer, but your efficiency will drop. You'll also have to split the soup between more people. It's up to you to make the choice. That person thought about it. The chances of finding any treasures in the outer region are too low. Missing this chance is something we would regret for a lifetime. I accept Senior Apprentice Brother's second option. We will join forces with other guilds before going deeper. Remember, if you encounter people from the other powers, as long as you can beat them, make sure to kill them all. You are the 17th group of people I've saved. I've seen members of all 5 powers, and their attitude toward the High Firmament Academy is not snatching treasures, but killing us all. Don't show any compassion, urged Long Chen. Long Chen smelled the scent of a scheme within the Jialin Immortal land. It seemed that the 5 powers were collectively targeting the High Firmament Academy, wanting to wipe them all out. Suddenly, Long Chen's expression changed slightly. He received a distress signal from Luo Bing. After that, he immediately set off on his silver eagle, quickly arriving where Luo Bing was. But he found that they weren't in any danger. Brother San, we've noticed some powerful experts from the Clear River Palace. They seem to be carrying out some large movement. We're worried we won't be able to handle it ourselves, so we asked you to take a look, said Mu Qingyun. Clear River Palace. That was one of the 6 powers that had entered the Jialin Immortal land. This sect was founded 13,000 years ago. Compared to an ancient power like the High Firmament Academy, it was nothing more than an up-and-coming youngster. However, the Clear River Palace developed very quickly. In the last 2,000 years in particular, they reached an unprecedented golden age. The number of disciples beneath their flag was not lower than the High Firmament Academy, and they were extremely powerful. Amongst the 6 powers, their power was second only to the Golden Bell Gate. They were the 2 strongest forces amongst the 6 powers, while the Firmament Academy was dead last. Thus came the saying of the Golden Bell Tigers, Clear River Wolves, and High Firmament Sheep. Despite the High Firmament Academy's long-lasting history and inheritance, its institution was rotten. Hence, its talented people slowly left, with each generation of disciples being worse than the last. It could already be said to be declining. The High Firmament Academy didn't restrict its disciples' freedom, as they were nothing more than a place of learning. They accepted tuition fees to raise disciples. If the disciples wanted to stay, they could stay. If they wanted to leave, they could leave. However, other sects were mostly lifelong commitments. Once you joined a sect, you had to be loyal to that sect for a lifetime. Leaving would be considered a falling out, and you would be chased down. Contrary to the norm, many disciples cultivating in the High Firmament Academy ultimately ended up returning to their families. Some talented disciples were even picked up by other sections. All of this combined with the higher-ups' attitude of indifference resulted in the High Firmament Academy's power slowly dropping. However, no matter how rotten it was, its foundation was still there. It was still the Martial Heaven Prefecture's strongest academy. In the past, when the Academy's disciples entered the Jialin Immortal world, being bullied was natural, but the other 5 powers didn't dare to go too far. As long as the disciples handed over their treasures, then at most they would humiliate the disciples a bit before letting them off. However, this time was different. Long Chen had saved so many of the Academy's disciples, and he found that the 5 powers disciples were trying to wipe them out this time. That enraged Long Chen. Although he didn't feel that much sense of belonging toward the High Firmament Academy, the 5 powers were going too far with their bullying. They weren't just taking treasures but also killing. Furthermore, Long Chen felt that things weren't so simple. Before leaving, Heaven Master Yun Yang had told him how to use the High Firmament Sacred Tablet. At the same time, he had told Long Chen that the Jialin Immortal Land was not the Academy. He didn't need to be restricted by the Academy's rules. Originally, he had thought that the Heaven Master was referring to Chu Yang and Chu Huiran. However, now when he thought back to it, it seemed that there had been another layer to his words. Now, he thought that Heaven Master Yunyang might be referring to this. After arriving where Luo Bing was, Long Chen heard that her group had seen the Clear River Palace's experts stealthily doing something here. Brother San, around 200 miles from here, there is a mountain valley covered in mist. It's impossible to see the situation inside, but when we noticed it, the Clear River Palace's people had already arrived. That squad of experts stayed for a while, and then 2 more groups of experts arrived. One of them contained a terrifying expert covered in mist. It's as if they were merged into heaven and earth. They clearly received a message to go there. I feel like there must be something important inside, whispered Mu Qingyan. As a sword cultivator, she had a sharp sense of how strong or weak others were. It was precisely due to sensing how powerful that person was that she didn't dare to make any rash moves. That's a good thing. Let's go take a look. Long Chen wasn't that interested in searching for treasures because he could never find them. But snatching treasures was something he excelled at. Long Chen led them into the valley. When they got close to it, Long Chen raised his hand, indicating for everyone to stop. Long Chen then called over the archers. He pointed to over 10 patrolling disciples of the Clear River Palace. After that, he pointed to his head and drew an arc with his hand. Those archers instantly understood. They took out their bows and aimed. After that, Long Chen waved his hand. Over 10 light sounds rang out. Those patrolling disciples instantly had an arrow sprout out of their heads. Without making a sound, they fell limply to the ground. Not bad. Your curved arrows are starting to have the right flavor. Long Chen nodded and had a slight smile. He then gave the archers a thumbs up. They had progressed very quickly, having even grasped the fundamentals of the curved arrow. Such an arrow could kill people easily. Due to not aiming right at them, it was more difficult to sense. By the time the enemies reacted, they would already be struck. Those archers were delighted by Long Chen's praise. Originally, they were not valued by others. In fact, others even looked down on them, thinking that they were cowards who didn't dare to use blades. However, Long Chen attached great importance to them, even transmitting powerful archery arts to them. As a result, they had made such rapid improvements during this time that even they themselves didn't dare to believe it. It was as if they were in a dream. After killing the scouts, they slipped deeper into the mist. Long Chen's senses were sharp, and they ran into another wave of exposed scouts, as well as 2 waves of hidden scouts. Long Chen himself didn't take action, instead letting the archers handle them all. The archers displayed an amazing level of skill. Their silent arrows seemed to chase down their enemies' souls. Within the mist, those Clear River Palace's disciples didn't even know how they died. Back when Long Chen had said that archers and healers were the most important existences in a group, some people were unconvinced. But now they bore witness to the terror of archers and could no longer look down on them. They advanced a dozen miles within the mist before it slowly started to dissipate. At this point, they felt the ground shaking occasionally. They're underground. Long Chen looked around and didn't find any cave entrance. Luo Bing was about to send some people to investigate the surroundings when Long Chen gestured to them to be quiet. He then pointed to a distant stone covered in moss. Luo Bing saw that the moss was on the side leaning against the mountain. As the color was very different from the rest of the mountain, it had clearly been moved. Li Kai then pushed aside the large stone, revealing a cave entrance. Inside the cave, there was another group of over 10 experts from the Clear River Palace. They clearly hadn't expected anyone to arrive here, but before they could shout, another wave of arrows killed them. This was a cave entrance dozens of meters wide. They heard rumbling sounds coming from within as if people were fighting. "We should quicken the pace, or the treasure will be taken by others first," said Luo Ning nervously, as well as excitedly. Killing people to take their treasures. This was the first time for her. No need. Even if they get the treasure, we can just take it. Our goal isn't to snatch treasures but to kill people. Long Chen smiled somewhat sinisterly and led them down the cave. They didn't encounter any more sentries. After one more turn, they saw a giant space. Then a terrifying bestial roar shook their ears. Long Chen saw a giant cave easily hundreds of miles wide. He hadn't expected there to be such a giant space underground. At this moment, a group of people were fighting a golden horned python. It was 300 meters tall and covered in strange runes. When the scales moved, water vapor would burst out, leaving layers and layers of ripples. Hundreds of experts surrounded the golden horned python, but they were the ones being killed miserably. There were bloodstains everywhere, as well as some broken corpses. In the distance, there were dozens of people lying on the ground powerlessly. What is that? Luo Bing jumped in shock when she sensed the aura of the golden horned python. Its aura was chilling. An ancient species, the gold crystal soaring serpent. When it's mature, it's a rank 5 immortal beast. At rank 3, it gives rise to gold. At rank 4, it grows wings. At rank 5, it condenses its crystal. Seeing how its scales have turned golden, but it only has water chi wings, not true wings, it should be at the peak of rank 3, said Long Chen. Having read through so many books in the academy, Long Chen was no longer a novice when it came to the immortal world. He had skimmed through all kinds of knowledge. We're actually bearing witness to an immortal beast. Li Kai was shocked. Immortal beasts possessed the blood of the immortal Tao and the blessing of the immortal world. They were the strongest of the beast races and rarely seen. Boom! The gold crystal soaring serpent's tail whipped toward those Clear River Palace disciples. But at this moment, a violet-robed fair-faced man with long hair smashed a water thorn at its tail. As a result, water chi exploded, unleashing a giant ripple. Those disciples blocked with all their power but were still sent flying by that wave, with half of them coughing up blood. As for the man with the water thorn, he once more attacked. His water thorn was a rarely seen water attribute divine weapon. It was extremely sharp and had actually left long lines all over the serpent's body. The disciples that had been knocked down charged back, working together with the man to suppress the gold crystal soaring serpent. Based on their practiced movements, they had been fighting for a long time and had grown familiar with the gold crystal soaking serpent's attack tempo. Are they trying to subdue it? Asked Luo Bing. With their power, subduing it is impossible. An immortal beast can only be subdued through absolute power. Without obtaining its approval, it would rather die than submit, said Long Chen. Subduing an immortal beast called for a 1-against-1 fight with it. Furthermore, it required an absolute power disparity. If both sides were evenly matched and the immortal beast was only beaten through luck, it would still not acknowledge the winner as its master. For so many people to be attacking it jointly, forcing it to submit was impossible. Then is its corpse very valuable? Why would they attack it? Asked Luo Ning. Look behind it. Long Chen pointed. Luo Ning and others looked over. There was a pool of water behind the gold crystal soaring serpent, and mist swirled out of it. They could vaguely see a small platform on the stone border that was shaped like a plate. A strange plant was growing on the platform. Its leaves were like a sword orchid pointing in 4 directions. At the center was a tiny trunk that was bearing a single fruit, which was scarlet like blood. 7 long whiskers hung on it. What is that? Asked Mu Qingyun. None of them recognized it. Long Chen explained, it is a divine whisker daffodil. The whisker part comes from how it hangs like a person's beard. What is most precious about it is not the fruit, but the 7 whiskers growing out of the fruit. It takes 800 years to bear fruit, and 1,000 years for its trunk to grow an inch. The trunk is over 7 inches long, so it's been growing for over 8,000 years. The divine whisker daffodil is a special plant that doesn't fit into classic medicinal ingredient tiers. It contains water essence, and such a thing can be merged with thousands of medicinal pills. It is a treasure that every water element cultivator dreams of obtaining. Even directly consuming it would be endlessly beneficial. No wonder they are going all out. Their leader is a powerful water cultivator, said Luo Bing. The majority of the Clear River Palace's disciples were water element cultivators. The gold crystal soaring serpent was also a water element immortal beast and was clearly here to cultivate off of the divine whisker daffodil. Since the Clear River Palace's disciples wanted to take it, it naturally fought back with all its power. This beast's blood chi is starting to drop. Just keep fighting steadily and avoid casualties. This divine whisker daffodil has already entered our pocket, shouted the leader. His voice was sharp and thin, very unpleasant to listen to. It sounded half feminine and raised goosebumps. However, the Clear River Palace's disciples were invigorated by his voice. So many of them had died, but they were through with the hardest part. With the gold crystal Soaring Serpent's power starting to drop, it signified that the treasure was about to enter their hands. Everything had been worth it. The Clear River Palace's disciples grew even more careful, not daring to relax at all. They surrounded the gold crystal Soaring Serpent. With it guarding the divine whisker daffodil, when it knew it was definitely going to die, it might even destroy this treasure before its death. Thus, they didn't dare to go crazy with their attacks just yet. As long as they didn't force it, it would think that their power was also dropping, and it still had some hope. As long as they exhausted all its power, it wouldn't be able to destroy the divine whisker daffodil at the end when it finally thought to. This was the crux. Brother San, they are very powerful. We'll be at a disadvantage if we just charge in, said Mu Qingyun. She appraised these disciples and realized that they had over 500 powerful members. That was 100 people more than the members that both their guilds had brought. Leaving like this was something that they were unwilling to do. But just charging in, ignoring whether or not they would succeed or not, would come at a heavy price. It's fine. Just listen to me. That divine whisker daffodil is already mine, along with the gold crystal Soaring Serpent. Their lives are also mine. Long Chen smiled. That divine whisker daffodil was very useful to him. He had to obtain it. Half an incense stick's worth of time later, the gold crystal Soaring Serpent's aura began to plummet, which delighted the Clear River Palace's people. It was now unable to destroy the divine whisker daffodil even if it wanted to. However, just to be safe, they chose to continue wearing it down until it entered its weakest state before killing it. The gold crystal Soaring Serpent opened its mouth wide and spat out a wave of water swords that forced everyone back. However, they didn't notice that within that water chi, a medicinal pill flew into its mouth just before it closed. Suddenly, its scales lit up and its aura grew explosively. A terrifying pressure spread. Not good. It seems to be making a breakthrough, shouted the leader with the water thorn. Boom. As the gold crystal Soaring Serpent's body whirled, water chi soared, forming a whirlpool of death. The water chi contained astral winds that tore through space. Retreat! The leader with the water thorn shouted, unable to comprehend how this gold crystal Soaring Serpent that was on the verge of death would suddenly make a breakthrough. Now, its aura indicated that it was nearing the level of a rank 4 immortal beast. He held his water thorn in front of him. As it glowed, runes and water chi merged together, and a giant shield spread to cover everyone. Intense rumbling then rang out. Mu Qingyun and the others felt the astral winds blast across them. It was so strong that they felt like knives were brushing past their faces. They were already so far away but still felt such immense power. Then the core of the battlefield had to be under unimaginable pressure. Mu Qingyun, Luo Bing, and the others felt a trace of pity for the Clear River Palace's people for the first time. They knew that this was definitely Boss Long San's masterpiece. As a result, the land was in ruins, and the Clear River Palace's disciples littered the ground. No, it should rather be said that some were hanging in the sky as well. Broken limbs and flesh were everywhere, on the ground, on the walls, even hanging on the stalactites above them. Other than the close to 100 people beside the wielder of the water thorn, the rest had been killed. The gold crystal Soaring Serpent then fell to the ground after that one attack, its aura extinguished. It died just like that. Bastard! The leader cursed furiously and smashed it with his water thorn, causing a rain of blood. It was only after 3 strikes that he managed to cut off its giant head. He almost went crazy. The power that the serpent had unleashed right before its death had destroyed everything here. So many experts had died. There was no need to even check the weak divine whisker daffodil. So many people had perished, but they hadn't gained anything. No need to be so angry. Look, isn't the divine whiskered daffodil still in perfect shape? How are you going to thank me? Just at this moment, a lazy voice rang out. The Clear River Palace's experts were shocked and hastily looked over. When the mist slowly scattered, they finally saw a black-robed man standing on top of the platform where the divine whisker daffodil was. He was holding the divine whisker daffodil, smiling at them with his teeth. That smile was warm and sincere, seemingly grateful. Upon seeing him holding their treasure, the Clear River Palace's disciples' eyes instantly turned red. They surrounded him, killing intent surging out of them. "Who are you?" "Release the divine whisker daffodil," shouted their leader. Long Chen smiled. "It's impossible for me to release it. I, Boss Long San, have an ailment. What I can't obtain, I will do everything to obtain. What I've already obtained, I will never let go." Long Chen directly tossed it into the primal chaos space. This was a precious medicinal plant. Many medicinal pills could have their quality increased by adding it, and it could also be used to specially refine dozens of water element medicinal pills. Every single one of those pills was incomparably precious. Hence, this divine whisker daffodil was practically a priceless treasure. When it entered the primal chaos space, it didn't disappoint him. Even after leaving this water element cultivation ground, it continued to flourish. Moreover, it seemed to become even more vibrant. "Brat, you're courting death. What sector you from?" shouted the Clear River Palace's disciples. Just now, they hadn't dared to attack for fear of damaging the divine whisker daffodil. But seeing him put it away enraged them even more. It had to be known that this was a priceless treasure that needed to be stored in special water element items in order to guarantee that its divine energy didn't fade away. Seeing him putting it away so casually, they wanted to tear him apart. Long Chen waved his hand, kindly saying, "Don't get so emotional. It's very safe with me and it won't be damaged at all. But in any case, I don't need you to get so worried about my treasure, do I?" "Who are you?" shouted the leader, killing intent overflowing out of him. A sharp aura locked onto Long Chen. In the face of that aura lock, Long Chen didn't resist at all. He allowed himself to be locked down. "Is your head full of water? Or are your ears blocked? I am who I am, the one and only, the mighty, the one who stands tallest amongst the jade trees and blocks the greatest wind, the greatest hero of the 9 prefectures, the High Firmament Academy's boss Long San." Long Chen clasped his hands behind him and spoke extremely arrogantly, looking down his nose at them. "So you're trash from the High Firmament Academy. We are looking for you all, and you just have to send yourself to us," sneered one of the disciples. "Hand over the divine whisker daffodil, or we'll kill everyone from the High Firmament Academy." Those disciples roared furiously. So many of them had died, and now the treasure had been taken by Long Chen. If they weren't afraid of him damaging the divine whisker daffodil, they would have already pounced on him. This little fellow who seemed to only be a novice in the divine flame was looking down on them. They all began to threaten him, as if that would make Long Chen submit. Hence, Long Chen curled his lips and looked at the one with the water thorn. "It seems that you would be a second-rate character in the Clear River Palace. Tell me, what's the name of your rank 1 disciple? I wouldn't want to kill him without even knowing his name." "Haha." The disciples laughed furiously. "Idiot, senior apprentice brother you is rank 7 on our divine flame rankings and can easily crush you like an ant. You dare to ask about stronger people? Other than Bai Xiaole and Su Changchuan, who are barely qualified to carry the shoes of senior apprentice brother Tianyu, the rest aren't even qualified to ask for his name." Long Chen didn't react at all, but hidden in the distance, Mu Qingyun and the others were shocked. They had originally thought that this fellow with the water thorn would be the leading figure of the Clear River Palace. Even if he wasn't number 1, he had to be number 2. Just now, he had been the only one capable of blocking the gold crystal Soaring Serpent's full power attack. He was able to challenge a peak rank 3 immortal beast but was only rank 7 in the Clear River Palace? Just how terrifying was the Clear River Palace? Long Chen shook his head. "Isn't rank 7 only a second-rate character? Do you need to quibble with my wording?" Fine, I won't waste words with you. I don't like communicating in this fashion. Let's switch methods. For example, you kneeling and listening to me talk. Long Chen suddenly raised his hands and clapped once. Just then, dozens of arrows silently rained down. By the time those disciples reacted, their heads had been pierced. Warriors of the High Firmament Academy, please start your show. Long Chen sat down on the platform. A stalk of straw had appeared in his hand out of nowhere. After biting it, he lazily leaned back. Due to Long Chen's black robes, the Clear River Palace's people were unable to confirm his status. But when the Unfettered Alliance and the Luo Gate's archers appeared, they finally believed that he was from the High Firmament Academy. As the archers repeatedly shot, the Clear River Palace's disciples fell one by one. They became live targets here. The archers that Long Chen had picked to join them on this incursion were all talented and powerful. Their arrows were sharp and merciless. Kill them all. That senior apprentice brother Yu, the one with the water thorn, roared furiously. A bunch of archers that could only hide actually dared to sneak attack them. The Clear River Palace's experts blocked the arrows and charged over. As long as they could reach those archers, they would slaughter them. It took a few sacrifices to get through the rain of arrows, but they finally reached them. Just at that moment, the other disciples of the Unfettered Alliance and the Luo Gate charged out. Over 400 people instantly surrounded the Clear River Palace's experts. A bloody battle started. The Waterthorn user, senior apprentice brother Yu, gave his orders and then charged toward Long Chen, trying to reclaim the divine whisker Daffodil. However, he had barely moved when a sharp sword chi slashed through the air, causing him to shiver deep in his soul. He hastily focused on defending. Sparks flew. Mu Qingyun's figure then shook and flew back. However, senior apprentice brother Yu's expression completely changed. Although he had managed to block Mu Qingyun's sword, his waterthorn was left with a rice-sized nick in it. This waterthorn was a supremely powerful spirit item. It was tough and flexible, hard and soft. It was able to naturally block a portion of any attack's power. If it weren't for this waterthorn, he also wouldn't have dared to fight the gold crystal Soaring Serpent. However, this spirit item was now damaged, affecting the efficiency of its runes. It shocked, angered, and aggrieved him. Just as he was feeling distressed, violet light swords appeared in the air. Luo Bing and Luo Ning showed up at the same time. Their swords were composed of violet chi, and their combination attack was perfect. One was slow, one was fast. One attacked, one defended. This was Long Chen's first time seeing their combination technique. He hadn't expected it to be so flawless. Luo Bing and Luo Ning's violet chi sword surrounded senior apprentice brother Yu. One was as heroic as a goddess of war, while the other was as elegant and agile as a fairy. They completely suppressed their opponent. Long Chen smiled. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were truly smart. Last time, when Long Chen had fought Chu Yang, he had unleashed an endless stream of attacks that prevented Chu Yang from unleashing any of his big moves. These two sisters were now doing the same thing as him. One of them was constantly attacking. At first, Luo Bing was defending a bit, but later, both of them could continuously attack. With their marvelous cooperation, senior apprentice brother Yu had no chance to retaliate. He was forced to passively defend. As for Mu Qingyun, she found that she was superfluous here. If she joined in, it might ruin their rhythm. Thus, she chose to join Li Kai and the others, but she didn't attack herself. She always followed Long Chen's teachings, so she didn't take away other people's chances to improve themselves. Sometimes helping out of the goodness of her heart would become the reason a person would die in the future. Hence, she just kept watch. The reason why the High Firmament Academy's disciples were weak wasn't because of their cultivation base or talent. Instead, it was because they lacked any true tempering. Only the danger of death on the battlefield could turn them into true warriors, transforming them from greenhouse flowers. With Li Kai, Zhong Ling, Zhong Xiu, and the others supporting the disciples, as well as the archers and the healing warriors as backups, the Luo Gate and the Unfettered Alliance's warriors had nothing to worry about. However, this time, they weren't facing brainless devil creatures but true experts. Despite their numbers, they truly felt that their enemies were powerful this time. In the beginning, quite a few people were injured and almost killed. Even so, with the number advantage, after getting used to this new kind of battlefield, the cooperation of both guilds grew clearer, and their advantage also grew. On the other side, Luo Bing clashed with senior apprentice brother Yu directly. When she fell back, Luo Ning slashed him in the back. Even his precious armor wasn't able to block her attack, and a large cut opened up on his back. Just as he was injured, Luo Bing struck again. The two of them had essentially surrounded him, so all he could do was fight for a chance to form hand seals, but that chance never came. Luo Bing, you shouldn't have clashed with him directly just now. You just need to use 2 Bloodline spirit swords. One blocks the Waterthorn's tip, the other blocks the middle. Grasp hold of the timing, and you can stop half his power instantly. Use a glue art to keep hold of his weapon. Although it will only hold it for a moment, Luo Ning will be able to strike his head. To sacrifice 2 Bloodline spirit weapons for an enemy's life isn't a loss. Luo Ning, why are you spinning when slashing people? In that position, all you need to do is kick with your left foot and you can strike his third leg. If you hit it, he'll lose half his life. If he dares to dodge, then Luo Bing is to the left. He can only go right, and that would be sending his neck to your sword. As the two fought, Long Chen leaned back on the stone platform and gave some pointers. Although the two of them were already very strong, they were lacking experience when it came to killing their enemies. They didn't understand how to predict attacks and judge risks, so Long Chen used this person to give them a lesson. Luo Bing and Luo Ning felt like they were grasping insights repeatedly, so they grew even more brazen. Their attacks grew more and more vicious, almost sinister even. As for that senior apprentice brother Yu, his expression changed. As Long Chen constantly pointed out his weaknesses, he felt more and more fear. In front of Long Chen, he felt like his life was out of his own hands and could be taken at any moment. Let me go, or I'll make all you accompany me in death. That senior apprentice brother Yu suddenly took out a bead. When it appeared, this entire space quivered. A terrifying energy was contained within this bead, definitely more than enough to kill everyone here. Sensing that terrifying energy, Luo Bing and Luo Ning hastily stopped their attacks. They both retreated. What is this thing? Long Chen looked at that dark and murky object. An expression of shock gradually appeared on his face. This is Decawater Divine Lightning. By compressing a 1,000-mile pool of Xian water into a lightning bead, once it erupts, Senior apprentice brother Yu smiled and explained, only to find that Long Chen also had a Decawater Divine Lightning in his hand, and it was the same as his. He then looked down at his own hand and found it empty. At some point, his Decawater Divine Lightning had vanished and appeared in Long Chen's hand. Decawater Divine Lightning? I've only seen it in books. I didn't expect to actually see it in person today. This thing's quite amazing. Xian water is extremely heavy. To compress all that Xian water into a bead, when this thing explodes, at the very least, everyone here would be blasted out of existence. Little friend, this thing is too dangerous. It's not for children, so I'm confiscating this. Do you have any more? Long Chen didn't stand on courtesy and didn't put away the Decawater Divine Lightning. Senior apprentice brother Yu's head was blank. He felt like he was going crazy. This black-robed person was no human. He was a devil. He subconsciously replied, "No. No? All right, kill him." Long Chen waved his hand to Luo Bing and Luo Ning. The two of them almost laughed as they looked at senior apprentice brother Yu's lifeless face. It was as if he had turned into a fool. Even they themselves didn't see how Long Chen had taken the Decawater Divine Lightning. But that wasn't important. Probably the only one within the High Firmament Academy capable of toying with the experts of the Clear River Palace to this extent was Long Chen. Long Chen had been paying attention to senior apprentice brother Yu closely this entire time. After all, he didn't use people's lives as jokes. The instant senior apprentice brother Yu had taken out the bead, Long Chen sensed it. The reason this Decawater Divine Lightning was called Divine Lightning was because it contained a lightning rune inside that was used to detonate the bead. As a controller of Thunder Force, Long Qin easily drew it over. This senior apprentice brother Yu hadn't been planning on actually using it, so he didn't activate it the moment it came out. It had only been taken out to threaten them. Moreover, he had held it very lightly because he was afraid of accidentally detonating it. Hence, for Long Qin to take it was simple. Luo Bing and Luo Ning once more started attacking. Senior apprentice brother Yu's mental state was in chaos, and in just a few exchanges, Luo Ning cut off his arm. Tell me, why are you targeting the High Firmament Academy? Why are you trying to slaughter all our disciples? If you tell the truth, I can spare your life, said Long Qin indifferently. Hearing that, Luo Bing's killing blow slowed down, allowing him to narrowly escape with his life. Are you telling the truth? Asked senior apprentice brother Yu with a quivering voice. Whether it's the truth or not isn't important to you, because you have no other choice. If you don't believe it, you can take your secret to hell. I can just find someone else to ask. Long Qin shrugged. But I'll tell you. I received orders from the palace master to kill all the disciples from the High Firmament Academy, especially Bai Xiaole. She must be slain here. Furthermore, the 5 powers' first priority isn't to search for treasures, but to kill disciples of the High Firmament Academy, shouted senior apprentice brother Yu as he fended over Luo Bing and Luo Ning's slower attacks. With their constant attacks, he had no ability to lie. Why would you suddenly target the High Firmament Academy? Asked Long Qin. In the past openings of the Jialin Immortal land, although the High Firmament Academy would often be bullied, it was definitely not so obvious. There had to be a reason. I don't know. We are just following orders. Make sure to keep your word, shouted senior apprentice brother Yu. He didn't know the reason. Hearing this answer, Long Qin frowned. If even he didn't know, then the others probably wouldn't know either. This probably related to the games between sections. However, Heaven Master Yun Yang had subtly indicated to him not to worry about consequences. This was the reason he had been given such immense authority. Not knowing the reason was no longer important. All he needed from this person was to confirm the attitude of the 5 powers. Then he could comprehend the Academy's intentions. As the 5 powers wanted to wipe them out here, he didn't need to have any misgivings. Since the Academy had given him the authority, he could go big. I, Long Qin, always keep my word. I'll spare your life. Long Qin waved his hand impatiently. Luo Bing and Luo Ning both stopped. Senior apprentice brother Yu was delighted and about to thank them when Luo Ning's sword suddenly slashed down. Caught off guard, his head was cut off. He spared your life, but I never said that I would. Luo Ning sheathed her sword with a sneer. Senior apprentice brother Yu's eyes were wide open, filled with resentment and anger. He could truly be said to have his eyes opened in death. Long Qin and Luo Ning exchanged a smile. For the first time, they had a silent agreement. Long Qin naturally wouldn't let this fellow off. While his soul star hasn't extinguished, should we try to do a soul search? Luo Ning pointed to that head. Upon advancing to the divine flame realm, even if a person's head was cut off, they wouldn't instantly die. The soul would be in a state of quasi-death, and if someone saved them within half a day or so, it would be possible to protect the soul. Before Long Qin even said anything, Luo Bing said, people like them definitely have restrictions in their souls to prevent others from peering into their secrets. There may even be a backlash curse hidden inside that will damage the person doing the soul search. It's not worth the risk. Important geniuses would have spiritual restrictions in their souls due to them knowing too many secrets. If a soul search was forcibly conducted, the soul would explode, which would strike the person doing the soul search. Some sects were even more domineering and would use beast souls that transformed into curses when a soul search was conducted. The curses would throw a person's soul into disorder, or perhaps even take control of the person. Unless you had a powerful soul cultivator with absolute certainty in being able to get past those restrictions, soul searches shouldn't be randomly conducted. This senior apprentice brother Yu was dead, and the other disciples of the Clear River Palace were also slain. On the other hand, the Luo Gate and the Unfettered Alliance's side only had a dozen people with rather heavy injuries and needed to rest. They didn't have any casualties, so it could be called a complete victory. Clean up the battlefield. For now, we're no longer searching for treasures. We have to gather all the disciples of the academy and change strategies. We'll prepare for something big. A bloodthirsty glint flickered in Long Chen's eyes. Being targeted by the 5 powers caused his warlike blood to start heating up. His most primal killing desire slowly woke. It was unknown why the 5 powers would suddenly start targeting the High Firmament Academy, but while Long Chen didn't like the Academy's disciples, he wasn't willing to just watch as they died miserable deaths. Hence, he directly sent out the order to gather, and more of the Academy's disciples gathered from nearby. After 3 days, 500,000 disciples of the Academy had come. They didn't know why Long Chen had sent out this signal, but due to their respect for him, they all rushed over. The Academy had originally sent 1 million disciples in, but now only half came. The majority of these people were guilds with lower ranks. Those with higher ranks had either gone too far to receive the signal or ignored it. Luo Bing and the others silently shook their heads when it came to those guilds that hadn't come. If a person wanted to die, not even the heavens could stop them. However, what worried Luo Bing slightly was that the Luo Alliance's people didn't come. Long Chen's message would only be received by the leader of the guild. So, perhaps Luo Qingyang had received the signal and was ignoring it, making her uneasy. When those people arrived, Long Chen directly told them that the 5 powers were declaring war on the High Firmament Academy. Their goal was to exterminate all the Academy's disciples. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. They didn't dare to believe it. Long Chen directly told them that if they believed him, they had to listen to his arrangements. If they didn't believe him, fine, they could continue exploring as they pleased. Ultimately, those disciples chose to believe Long Chen. After all, they didn't feel like Long Chen had any reason to trick them. Long Chen split the 5 million disciples into 5 groups, led by the experts that Long Chen picked out. He also picked out 3,000 elite disciples to join the sides of the Luo Gate and the Unfettered Alliance. Under his direction, they slowly pressed deeper in. All the treasures were put together and would be distributed once they left the Jialin Immortal land. Their main goal was no longer to search for treasures, but to protect their lives. They only searched for treasures while they were absolutely guaranteed to keep their lives. As for the 3,000 elites, they were essentially the leaders of the guilds and some rather powerful warriors. Long Chen led these disciples deeper into the Jialin Immortal land. Someone else would have great difficulty leading such a force. That was because these people were leaders of their guilds, and not so easy to order around. However, Long Chen possessed an indescribable charisma, so these people quickly fell into line. In Luo Bing's view, Long Chen was a natural leader. In just a few sentences, he gained everyone's trust. Seeing those prideful guild leaders listening to his orders, Luo Bing sighed in amazement. His charisma was truly powerful. On the way, they encountered a group of experts from Silver Moon City. Long Chen then sent out a small squad as bait, causing those 700 experts to immediately surround and give the order to kill them. Those orders had only just been given when Long Chen surrounded them with over 3,000 experts. Without a word, those people were directly killed. Through questioning the leader, Long Chen obtained the same answer he had gotten from senior apprentice Brother Yu. The higher-ups had ordered them to kill the disciples of the High Firmament Academy, but they didn't know the reason. However, from their leader, Long Chen learned that the top experts of the 5 powers had entered deep into the Jialin Immortal land, not in search of treasures, but to kill Bai Xiaole. The higher-ups gave them an important mission, and it was to make sure Bai Xiaole didn't leave alive no matter the price. The elite disciples finally experienced just how serious this problem was. The 5 powers were intent on killing all of them. Furthermore, their most important target was Bai Xiaole. That had to contain some secret. Tisich, are they trying to stop Bai Xiaole from awakening her primal bloodline? Are they not afraid of the Academy's retaliation? Bai Xiaole finally couldn't hold back anymore. Bai Xiaole was his big sister from the same father but different mother. However, he had never called her big sister, nor had she ever called him little brother. There was no close relationship between them. Instead, there was almost a hint of enmity between the two siblings. Primal bloodline? What is that? asked Long Chen in surprise. In all his books, he had not read anything about that. I'm not sure either. All I know is that transcendent ancestral bloodlines are all called primal bloodlines. It can be considered as the originator of a new bloodline. I heard that Bai Xiaole has 3 kinds of divine flames, and when she reaches the peak of the divine flame realm and the 3 flames merge, when she enters the 4-peak realm, she has an 80% chance of awakening a primal bloodline. Those who awaken a primal bloodline will receive the recognition of heaven and earth, and the primal bloodline mark will merge with the heavenly Daos, awakening an immortal Dao manifestation. After that, they have the potential to reach the peak of the immortal Dao, said Bai Xiaole. Long Chen's heart shook. Was possessing this so-called primal bloodline essentially being an Empyrean of the immortal world? But the immortal world's laws were complete, in comparison to the martial heaven continent. If the immortal world gave rise to an Empyrean, wouldn't they be completely unstoppable? Bai Xiaole hadn't even awakened her primal bloodline but was already so terrifying. If she did awaken it, she would truly become a monster. Should we report this to Fairy Xiaole so she can prepare? Said Mu Qingyun worriedly. Killing Bai Xiaole isn't so easy. Don't worry, she's very powerful. Even if they join forces, at most they can manage to defeat her. They can't kill her, said Bai Xiaole. Xiaole, you're wrong. If they have the ability to defeat her, they have a way to kill her. Long Chen patted his shoulder. No way, exclaimed Bai Xiaole in shock. It seems that you still care about her. Long Chen smiled. Me care about her? I'd rather worry about myself. Bai Xiaole shook his head. Long Chen, is Bai Xiaole really in danger? Asked Luo Bing gravely. Bai Xiaole was the Academy's #1 expert. If she was killed, that would be a calamity. The 5 powers had joined forces just to target them. If they lost Bai Xiaole, it would be even more difficult to escape from the 5 powers blockade. There is definitely danger. Although Bai Xiaole is powerful, she has a temper and not enough experience. If she was my enemy, then I would trap the Heaven Female Alliance's people and force Bai Xiaole to protect them. By using words to trap her, she will fight to the death. Her weak point is very clear, said Long Chen lightly. Bai Xiaole was extremely arrogant. Although she was powerful and smart, she had always grown up under the protection of the Academy. Hence, she lacked this experience and could easily fall for other people's traps. Then we should quickly reinforce her. Without her, we can't fight the 5 powers forces, said Luo Bing hastily. It's not so serious. The Jialin Immortal Land is so big. Finding a single person inside this place is easier said than done. Unless, Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. Unless there are traitors. Luo Bing instantly understood. She had also been sold out by a traitor back then and almost died to Chu Kuang. We're leaving immediately. Long Chen led his group rushing deeper into the Jialin Immortal Land. Brother San, why did you suddenly stop? Did you sense something? Asked Mu Qingyun when she saw Long Chen frown. His gaze was darting around. Just 6 hours before, when Long Chen was leading them in a straight line deep into the Jialin Immortal Land, he suddenly changed directions several times, leaving people feeling lost. But no one had said anything. Now that he suddenly stopped, Mu Qingyun couldn't help voicing her concerns. Everyone looked at Long Chen. Someone knows our position and is blocking us, said Long Chen heavily. He sensed danger, but that danger was following them like a shadow. It followed them wherever they went. At first, he only sensed danger from one direction, but now he sensed it from 3 different directions. That feeling was growing in all 3 directions. How could that be? Exclaimed Luo Bing. We've shut down our communication talismans. Chu Yang can't possibly know our location, said Luo Ning. Due to how far they had gone, they could no longer receive information from the disciples in other groups. The communication talismans had lost their use, so they had turned them off. Without the talismans, others couldn't possibly track their location. Furthermore, they were moving very covertly. Doesn't your Luo family have special communication methods? Asked Long Chen suddenly. No, we just use our bloodline to sense. Could it be? Luo Ning's expression suddenly changed. Test to see if you can sense Luo Qingyang, said Long Chen. Luo Bing nodded. After the Luo family's disciples had their bloodlines awakened, they could sense each other's bloodlines. Although they couldn't communicate directly with that, they could tell each other's general location. In the High Firmament Academy, only 3 of the Luo family's people had awakened their bloodline: Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and Luo Qingyang. At this moment, Luo Bing activated her bloodline divine ability, and violet qi floated out of her. However, her expression quickly changed. I am unable to sense Luo Qingyang's bloodline power. Luo Bing opened her eyes, revealing immense hatred and pain. She almost couldn't believe it. According to reason, in a place like the Jialin Immortal Land, Luo Qingyang couldn't possibly be out of her range. She should be able to sense his location. The moment Long Chen had gathered everyone, she had still been able to sense him. The 2 of them had not been too far. The reason why she was angry back then was because she felt that Luo Qingyang was definitely close enough to receive the message but didn't want to come, throwing the Luo alliance into danger. Now that she sensed again, she found that his bloodline power was gone. Even if the Luo family's disciples were killed, this bloodline sensing would remain for at least a few days before fading. For her to no longer be able to sense him, it could only mean that Luo Qingyang was suppressing his bloodline power so that she couldn't sense him. That already said everything that needed to be said. Upon thinking of that, tears even appeared in her eyes. She couldn't accept this reality. Luo Qingyang actually betrayed them due to jealousy. That bastard! Luo Ning clenched her teeth furiously. She didn't cry, and her eyes were full of killing intent. The other disciples of the Luo family also had ugly expressions. Luo Qingyang had actually betrayed the Luo family. Brother San, what can we do now? Asked Mu Qingyun as she comforted Luo Bing. They know our position, but they don't know many people we have. Amongst the forces surrounding us, one of them is dangerous, and we shouldn't clash with them. We will take advantage while they have yet to finish surrounding us to eliminate one of their groups. Then we'll understand what is happening. Long Chen led them around a mountain stream and then suddenly charged in one direction. Past 2 mountains, they saw a group of over 1,000 disciples wearing familiar robes. They were another group of experts from the Clear River Palace. Brothers, you're running so quickly. Are you in a rush to reincarnate? Asked Long Chen. Those experts were startled. They were chasing after Long Chen but didn't expect Long Chen and the others to appear in front of them. Wasn't it said that they only had 400 people? Demanded one of them. Time is pressing, so I won't waste words. I'll send you on your way. Long Chen's side instantly surrounded these experts, and over 3,000 weapons came out of their sheaths and attacked them. Kill! Luo Bing cried out and charged toward their leader, her sword slashing through the air. Luo Ning followed right behind her. Both of their faces were filled with icy killing intent. Long Chen looked toward Mu Qingyun, and she instantly understood, also joining in against that expert. Luo Bing and Luo Ning were still in an emotional state due to Luo Qingyang's betrayal, so Mu Qingyun went there to prevent the worst-case scenario. The 3 of their moves were very vicious. It was as if they viewed that person as Luo Qingyang. He was slightly stronger than senior apprentice brother Yu, but in the face of these fierce tigresses, he instantly fell to a disadvantage. Most shocking of all was Mu Qingyun as her sword chi raised goosebumps. They were like 3 Yama kings, constantly attacking and preventing him from using any big moves. If you have guts, come at me one-on-one dash. His furious roar became the last sound he ever made. Luo Ning's sword cut off his head. This pitiful expert, having lost the initiative, failed to even unleash half of his power before being slain. After killing him, Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and Mu Qingyun turned on the other experts of the Clear River Palace. Those experts were caught off guard, and with their leader killed, they only thought of how to break free from this encirclement. But these 3,000 elites that Long Chen had picked out wiped them out in less than an incense stick's worth of time. Any fish that slipped through the net were killed by arrows from the archers. Let's go! Once they were slain, he didn't give his people time to clean up the battlefield. Long Chen led them rushing off. Just half an incense stick's worth of time later, another group of people arrived here. Seeing the corpses on the ground, they were shocked. Their leader was a large man wearing golden battle armor. He was like a miniature giant, as he was almost half a body taller than a normal person. Just by standing there, the power of his blood chi caused space to slowly twist around him. Even without intentionally circulating his blood chi, his aura was unbearable. Others had to stay several meters away from him. The ones behind him were all large and muscular men, all of them with astonishing blood chi. But next to him, they were like grass compared to a towering tree. There was only one person amongst them who stood out. He was rather skinny in comparison to their large bodies. It was Luo Qingyang. Luo Qingyang, you bastard! You betrayed the Luo family. Even 10,000 deaths can't atone for your sins. Suddenly, Luo Bing's icy voice rang out, causing Luo Qingyang's expression to change. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.